We live? Yeah, we're live. Hell yeah. Let's go. Meow? You're not a cat. That's not even in my chat. That's the wrong chat. What are you doing? Alright, well that is it for this case. Man, what a case it was. Cabellion, am I right? We've definitely been streaming for the last 4 hours, and holy shit, that was a wild one. Anyone who wasn't here for that entire stream sure looks like an absolute idiot right now. Alright, well that is going to be it for tonight. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Yeah, I've been streaming for the past 21 hours, yeah. No, we just finished the case. No, man, I tell you, Stormy, that stuff about Enoch Drebber, it's a shame you missed it. You would have liked it. Alright, well, goodbye. You thought I was kidding? I'm not kidding. Okay, fine. Alright, fine, I was kidding. Fine, I was kidding. Let's do it. The Return of the Great Departed Soul. Let's get into it. Let's get straight into it. Stop lying. It's true, the stream did only take 12 minutes. Man, Cabellio keeping me honest. Cabelliot keeping me honest. Good morning to you, Mr. Naruhodo. Good morning, Professor. See, this is a weird thing. I'm confused why they decided to make the defendant for this case his name Professor when the name of the guy who murdered everyone with dogs was also, they called him the Professor, and it gets confusing. Why did they do that? Why didn't they just name this guy the Doctor instead of the Professor? I hope so. I should be, even I, with nothing left to... Good morning, my dear fellows. Hello. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you're here? Why, naturally. A true gentleman stands shoulder to shoulder with his friends in battle at all times. But what about all those times you didn't? Were we not friends? Thank you, I really appreciate it. I'll see you later then. Bye. Now, Professor, we really need you to remain calm in the courtroom today. Yes, do try your hardest not to enter the witness stand uninvited again. Yes, I will. I realize it was a mistake, but My dear fellows, I must interject. Oh, you're still here, Mr. Sholmes. What's the matter? Surely you've overlooked some praise, have you not? To be cast in my direction, sorry, I don't follow. Must I spell it out? I, the great Herlock Sholmes, the greatest detective of worldwide acclamation, arose at some ungodly hour to be here now, first thing in the morning. A miracle, you must agree. Well, if I must agree, then... As you know, my sleep is quite impregnable. Iris had to employ her full gamut of tactics. She pulled the covers off, shook me, poked both cheeks, punched me, and kicked me from the bed. Then she poured a boiling cup of her latest experimental blend on my face, and at last I was bestirred. Oh, my Iris has been busy. Iris doesn't have it in her to go that far. She's too nice. Ah, I sense the spirit of a fellow scientist, one who relishes the infinite possibilities of blending tea. I'm the one worthy of praise here, not Iris. This is my victory! Dude, she's 10. Sorry to cut in. Oh, that's Dog Gregson's voice. I always have to guess, and I'm wrong most of the time. Oh, Inspector Gregson, good morning. Gregson, my dear fellow, why the grim expression at this delightfully early hour? I don't know. Maybe because I've been confronted with a grimmer expression, eh? Dear me, are you going to take that insult lying down, Professor? What? I don't know! Poor Professor. Anyway, here's the paperwork you asked for. What paperwork? Ah, I took the liberty of requesting it yesterday. I have a feeling it may prove useful. You wouldn't believe the hoops I had to jump through to get this brought out of the archives. It's the Professor's autopsy report. That mass murderers? Who killed 5 members of the aristocracy? He was found guilty in a closed trial 10 years ago now. It was all done under wraps. And he was quickly executed soon after the trial. It's all in here. Why do I somehow doubt that? I don't know what to say. Thank you, Inspector. Let's take a look at that. Condemned prisoner. Redacted for confidentiality. Pseudonym, the Professor. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, the 17th of June. by Courtney Stevens. Should I recognize that name? Courtney sounds familiar. I'm not sure why. Okay, alright. Courtney Scythe. Oh, maybe she changed her last name? Yes, much obliged, Gregson. Oh, she got married. That makes sense.
Us lowly lord of the yard are just doing what we can. Sheriff of Great Detective Sholmes, of course.
Well then, Professor Hairbrain, this is it. Today we're gonna lay all this to rest at last. I wish you the best of luck, Professor. I suppose he'll be in there today, will he? Drebber. Yes, we expect the prosecution to summon him as a witness. I'm still amazed that you managed to find him in just one day. I really owe you both so much.
Counsel, where to defend me? Wrong but resume. Kindly make your way to the courtroom at once.
This is it then. The final chapter. Funny. My heart's racing a little. I've not felt this before, actually. This strange foreboding. As if something's gonna happen in this trial that I'm not ready for. But I can't let that distract me from the only thing. I'm getting chills. Finding the truth. I'm really excited to find out more about this professor dude. And not the professor that we're defending, the other one. Again, not sure why they decided to name them both the professor. Let's do it.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the public hearing of Albert Hairbrain, here present, who stands accused of murder. All the counsels for the prosecution and the defense ready to proceed. The prosecution is ready, my lord.
The defense is ready, my lord. As promised, Lord Van Zieks has his apprentice with him. His apprentice with memory loss.
If I may, Lord Van Zieks.
Yes, my lord.
There appears to be someone standing at your side.
Yes, my apprentice and assistant. The prosecution believes today's proceedings will see the complexity of this case rise considerably. I therefore instructed my assistant to attend to ensure the smooth running of the trial.
And the smooth running of liquid refreshments by the look of it. The way he holds himself, the way he moves, it couldn't be anyone else. But he's still suffering from amnesia, so there's really nothing we can do at the moment. I know, but oh, this is so very hard.
It would appear the prosecution has done a fine job in responding to the demands of the court made yesterday. I understand you have successfully secured the engineer who disappeared from the scene on the day in question.
Yes, my lord. Yeah, just bring another cat into the room. Let's get Wagahai in here. Make him trip over Wagahai, he'll get all his memories back.
I intend to call him as a witness shortly.
Very good, very good. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this courtroom today? Are you ready and willing to proceed?
Of course, my lord. I'm sure we all understand the importance of doing our civic duty.
I do so despise deception and deceit. I find it so very wearing.
To take a man's life with a conjuring trick, it is against the magician's code, not to mention the law. Many fake scientists should feel the wrath of God, if you ask me.
We have to list what's set on both sides of the fence, and then settle on the wood. That's it, isn't it?
It wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all.
If all parties are ready to proceed, you may begin, Lord Van Zieks.
Before I do, my lord, there is a report I must read to the court. Yesterday, at the Great Exhibition Grounds, the evidence of primary importance in this case, the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine, which was installed on the experimentation stage, was deliberately destroyed in an explosion affected by an unknown person or persons.
We know who!
It was what?
The explosion! This is an outrage!
We know who exploded. He basically told us.
Yes, I heard this grave news yesterday. Scotland Yard submitted a report to my office in the evening. I read that the machine was blasted to smithers and the wreckage reduced to ashes in the flames.
I have here a photographic print of the scene taken in the wake of the explosion.
So there's definitely a hole under it.
It shows what little remains of the machine.
Yes, a terrible business.
So something could definitely fall down there. That would be a problem. He did it to destroy evidence, didn't he? That Enoch Drebber.
The court will take this print as evidence, counsel.
Late yesterday afternoon, the protection afforded to the machine by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act was revoked. However, before a thorough investigation could begin, the invention was obliterated from existence. As such, this will become a very different trial.
What?
As it stands now, with no evidence on which to draw meaningful conclusions, the authenticity of the kinesis machine will remain forever in obscurity.
Indeed. My most unfortunate state of affairs.
However, one thing remains clear. The victim's death was the result of the actions of the accused. Of that we can be certain. For it was the accused himself who was operating the machine and who ultimately caused its loss of control.
As Lord Van Zeeks rightly says, this is a very different trial now. The accused accepts responsibility for his part in the events that transpired. He acknowledges that Mr. Asman died as a result of the accident caused by his machine's malfunction. However, unbeknownst to the professor, he was being deliberately deceived by a pair of very clever fraudsters.
Names, counsel, if you please.
The engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, and the victim himself, Mr. Odie Asman. So what exactly were these two men up to behind the defendant's back? The defense intends to expose that information, thus establishing the unequivocal innocence of the defendant.
Thank you, counsels. The positions of the prosecution and defense have been clearly stated. Lord Van Zeeks, summon your first witness, please.
At once, my lord. The prosecution calls the engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to the stand.
Here we go.
State your name and occupation for the court.
Name, Enoch Drebber. Occupation? Hard to pin down, I would say.
See that black monocle? Yes, why do I feel as though I've seen it somewhere before? Oh, you do. I had exactly the same feeling myself.
Yo, to murder on the stand, we got an Ace Attorney case, true.
Your file indicates that you are currently being investigated in connection with another case. The theft of a waxwork model, is it? A most extraordinary sounding business.
But that has no bearing on this trial, I assure you. Cleave it from your mind.
You're familiar with the public experiment carried out at the Great Exhibition some days ago? The accused super high voltage instantaneous kinesis demonstration.
Yes, you could say that. I am aware of it. There was a terrible accident, wasn't there?
It was you, Mr. Drebber, who constructed the vast machine used in the experiment. Or so our investigations indicate. Can you confirm your involvement?
Yes, I constructed it in precise accordance with the blueprints, but that's all.
Then the court would be very interested to hear your thoughts about the machine, I'm sure.
An amazing device, if you ask me. The pinnacle of modern science, making instantaneous kinesis a reality at last.
What?
Good gracious, do you mean to say that the experiment was bona fide? Is that your belief, sir?
Yes, that is very much my belief. Such a waste that it blew up.
But we've already established the machine was nothing more than a prop for an elaborate conjuring trick.
You've established nothing of the sort. All that was shown during yesterday's proceedings is that the same outcome could have been produced by means of staged trickery. The defense merely proposed a method and demonstrated its feasibility, nothing more.
But... He's right.
We procrastinated long enough, I feel. Witness, you will now give your formal testimony about the machine that you constructed for the purpose of the demonstration of the Great Exhibition.
Understood.
The kinesis machine.
I met the young professor approximately 1 year ago through Mr. Asman's introduction. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the crystal tower. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow.
A body double?
That goes without saying, surely. To give the impression that something has moved when in reality it hasn't. It's a basic conjuring principle. The deception cannot be achieved without substituting the original with a fake at some point in the performance. But would I be right in saying you haven't managed to establish anything along those lines?
Incidentally, the prosecution has already confirmed that Mr. Asman had no twin siblings.
It's my understanding that this witness is well versed in conjuring artfulness. But such tones do not indicate that he was actually able to accomplish what he claims. Namely, the construction of what by all accounts must have been an extremely complex scientific machine.
Whatever do you mean?
Yesterday's proceedings brought the true nature of your past exploits to light, Mr. Trevor.
Indeed it did, my lord. As a swindler who preys on innocent scientists to elicit government grant money through conjuring know-how.
Yes, it's true that I possess considerable knowledge of stage magic. But crucially, my scientific knowledge more than matches that of any academic in the field.
Investigation of the witness's workshop attests to that claim, my lord. As evidence, the police found this Royal Society trophy for young talent in science there.
Yes, that's true. We spotted it there ourselves. If a hypothesis is sound, it can always be forged into physical manifestation, with sufficient skill. Though I may have sold the secrets of some deceptive wiles to sniveling, talentless scientists in the past.
Well, would you therefore say that the explosion of the machine was...
An unfortunate accident, or, of course, a deliberate act of murder carried out by misuse of the science.
Counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please.
Yes, my lord. Alright, here we go. I think they would hold a candle to the real thing.
Met the young professor approximately 1 year ago through Mr. Asman's introduction.
So you were already acquainted with Mr. Asman himself?
Not really. By chance I'd seen his name mentioned in the papers, that's all. But I had no interest in his private affairs. If he was an unscrupulous investor, it was of no concern of mine. As long as people pay their bills, I take up my tools and construct what they ask for.
So why did Mr. Asman approach you in particular then?
Who can say? I presume because my name is associated with excellence in engineering.
Not to mention excellence in fraud.
You offend me, sir. Hard to gauge. But the point is, all I did was construct the machine according to the blueprints I was given.
In other words, the kinesis machine was built on solid scientific principles.
Yes, you might say that. Professor Hairbrain certainly has a mind like no other. Provided me with the blueprints, and I constructed the machine to its precise specifications. It was no trick.
It's clear that you have both scientific knowledge and knowledge of scientific magics, however.
The more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes along. But your implication is that I furnished the machine with some trickery, I think.
It's a possibility that we have to explore.
Unfortunately, though, the machine has been blown to Kingdom Come. So there's really nothing left to explore, is there?
It appears that the kinesis machine was fitted with a timed explosive device of some kind.
And there's nothing left of that device either. Not a single shred of evidence remaining, I hear.
He must have planned all this from the outset.
But in any case, it's abundantly clear that the experiment couldn't have been a trick.
The whole show is a fraud.
Wouldn't have been required a body double.
Of course, that's it. Mr. Asman was a twin.
Objection!
Come on, man.
Perhaps my learned friend wasn't listening earlier. Mr. Asman had no twin siblings.
No, I heard you before. But the thread I hope hadn't quite left me.
The demonstration could have been a trick if there was somebody who looked sufficiently like the victim. But Dr. Scythe absolutely ruled that out as a possibility.
It is beyond question that the victim himself, Mr. Asman, did move from the stage to the Crystal Tower. The fingerprints found at the scene attest to the fact.
So it can't have been orchestrated using someone who looked identical to Mr. Asman, then. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, no, nothing. Just that the idea of someone who looked identical to the victim is playing on my mind.
All the spectators saw the birdcage then crash headfirst into the Crystal Tower.
Crashed headfirst, you say?
According to the many witness reports from those there at the time, yes.
Were you not there at the exhibition grounds on the day?
Unlikely. I rarely leave my workshop.
Yet another of your unique inventions was found at the scene.
Well, it was the unveiling of a machine I'd labored over for many months. I saw it clearly with my own eyes, the birdcage plummeting headfirst into the tower.
What a surprise.
I believe the victim's neck was broken from the headlong fall, wasn't it?
How would you have come by that information? Okay, I think we got him dead to rights. Yep. I think that's what this says, right? Crashed down, victim inside, causing damage to its base.
Even an infernal recluse like me reads the newspapers, you know. According to the reports, 2 injuries were apparent on the victim's body.
Yes, he'd been stabbed in the chest by a screwdriver believed to belong to the defendant, and he had broken vertebrae as a result of the fall from a considerable height.
Correct. My learned friend has been doing his research, it seems.
Do we know which injury was the fatal one?
Sadly not. Forensic science is not yet at a level where such things can be determined. What we do know is that the victim died having sustained both injuries at some point during the experiment. And since he was found in the birdcage with his neck broken...
It's obvious that he fell from a considerable height.
I suppose that's hard to deny.
A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built is flawed somehow.
Head first, okay. I'm presenting on that.
Objection!
We've examined the birdcage that crashed into the Crystal Tower ourselves. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, had sustained damage in one particular spot.
Following the explosion, it fell some 30 feet from the glass into the glass of the Crystal Tower. That level of damage is to be expected, surely.
I agree. The damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of that damage. All the breakages in the wood are at the base of the birdcage, not the top.
What are you saying?
That's the opposite of where they should be.
No, because there's 2 bird cages. That one fell straight down, and that was the one there. That's right, my lord. The birdcage that was at the scene is damaged at its base. So we have reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the Crystal Tower, yet the damage is at the bottom. The only way to reconcile these 2 facts is to accept that there were 2 bird cages in play that day, which were at some point switched. Switched during what wasn't a scientific experiment at all, but an elaborate piece of stage trickery.
Gah!
Good gracious, explain yourself, witness.
Well...
If we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage clearly indicates that it crashed tail first into the tower.
Objection.
But multiple witness reports claim it fell headfirst.
The birdcage materialized in the sky next to a balloon flying over the stage, following a spontaneous explosion, at an altitude of some 60 feet above ground level.
Which is approximately 18 meters. Thanks, Suzato.
It then proceeded to fall some 30 feet onto the crystal tower in an ensuing deflagration. Witness reports amid such chaos are notoriously unreliable.
Objection.
The victim's neck was broken.
Objection! He plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy wooden cage. However he fell, it would be unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed.
A riveting scientific analysis of events from the prosecution there. Though to be even more rigorous, you would have to say it was only one vertebra, actually.
Wait, he wasn't quiet for long. I find it hard to see what's motivating Lord Van Zeeks. This witness is clearly a swindler, and one who deceived a personal friend of his. If you're gonna establish this deception, do it right. Sorry? I feel like that's the undertone here.
Ah, yes, and there's one more point. The defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't a trick, as the certain truth very plainly demonstrates.
What?
It seems to me that the cross-examination had better continue until we resolve this matter. Mr. Drebber, you will omit your testimony with details of this truth.
Of course. We must treat the matter scientifically, after all.
I nearly had him there. Dude's a fucking robot.
The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from.
Okay, well that we know that to be fucking fake. What do you mean?
Well, before the demonstration began, the victim was alive on stage in front of the audience.
Yes, there are lots of witnesses who saw Mr. Asman on the experimentation stage, that's true.
And the victim's neck broke as a result of an impact following a fall. Logically, therefore, the victim must have fallen from somewhere.
The balloon that exploded was at an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. The difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell.
And there's no other location from which the cage could have fallen that distance if it didn't drop out of the sky. Ergo, the victim himself must have been beamed from the stage onto the sky above the crystal tower.
A trenchant scientific analysis. Dear me, every time I hear it explained, it sounds increasingly plausible.
Oh yes, it's all very well thought out.
Certainly all the spectators on the day saw it. The birdcage plummeting 30 feet through the air, I mean. Irritatingly, yes. Am I crazy, or is this just the balloon?
Objection.
I guess not. Really? Okay, let's think about this a bit harder. We're already stuck. Okay, let's give this an old good old-fashioned thinkaroony. The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from. I mean, hole? Oh. No, hold on. Oh, I see what you're saying. Maybe? Okay, yeah, You're saying that this birdcage fell 30 feet down through the stage. Is that what you're suggesting? I think it's a possibility. I don't think that's what they're asking, but it might be worth a shot.
Objection.
No. Okay. We're gonna load that. Okay. Yeah, because you're right. I think the reason that birdcage has damage on the bottom is because it fell through the hole. Maybe the experiment sketch? Okay, the experiment sketch. Alright. This is a diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in midair before falling down into the crystal tower. A fall of about 30 feet, or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram carefully, you'll see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet.
No!
Well, it appears the defense has a multiple explanation to put forward. Go ahead, counsel.
Yes, my lord. Of course.
You will indicate the place to which you are referring. On the same diagram.
The alternative location from which the birdcage could have possibly fallen the requisite 30 feet. I'm confused. Is it saying from here? It's saying it fell from here to the ground? The alternative location from which the birdcage... Inside the balloon. Right, but like, there's no balloon there. Like, the balloon was here. I'm gonna say here.
Take that!
The place I'm referring to is here.
But that's where the birdcage would have been to begin with.
Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was in the machine on the stage. But what we must also consider is the height of the stage itself.
Go on, counsel.
It turns out that the experimentation stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at the diagram, in fact, you'll see it's about the same height above the ground as the balloon was from about the crash site. Just fell on through and hit the ground there. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam. At that moment, the floor on the stage gave way, and if we assume there to be a void underneath, this birdcage and the one seen by the audience would have fallen exactly the same distance. Once again, my lord, this all points to the fact that there was not one birdcage, but two.
Objection! My learned friend has no evidence that the stage had such a contrivance in its design!
Yeah, we do. Someone was responsible for the criminal destruction of the kinesis machine itself, it's true. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment to look at the photographic print of the scene following yesterday's explosion.
Good lord, the metal grill that formed the floor of the machine is undone.
Yes, most likely blown up by the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated. Immediately! Mr. Drebber. It was you who built the kinesis machine, which means that it was you who built the two bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Harebrain's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference, because it's the construction of this machine that matters. A machine designed to take Mr. Asmund's life and lay the blame firmly at the professor's door. Something that could only have been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Objection!
It's a good thing he didn't forget how to be a swordsman, or else he'd chop Van Zeke's arm off.
If my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertions, the prosecution would like to crush the defense's argument slowly but surely.
What?
Your argument fails to hold water. Much like my broken cups, because I keep breaking them.
2? You sound like my friend Sholmes. Friend, quotation marks.
Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the kinesis machine. Every relevant member of staff from the exhibition has attested to that.
And I believe members of the Scotland Yard have also been on watch to every public experiment.
In other words, Mr. Drebber had no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of bird cages.
Objection.
Wouldn't have to. But I've already explained why he wouldn't have needed to.
The nonsense with the crossbow, that doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disappeared from the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic investigation team's report is unequivocal on that point. The second flaw in your assertion is a distinct lack of motive. Why would this man have wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to do so.
A motive? Do I have to think of everything myself?
I have here a contract provided by the witness.
What contract is this, Lord Manjix?
Contract into which Mr. Drebber entered the victim. Entered the victim. They fucked. Entered with the victim, Mr. Asman. It reads, Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government, grants, or other income.
30%? Certainly favorable contractual conditions.
But there was one very important provision bolted onto that clause.
What provision?
Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive.
In other words, if either of us were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I had nothing to gain from Mr. Asman's death. The diametric opposite, in fact.
Need I say more? The witness had neither an opportunity nor a reason to commit the alleged crime. In short, the possibility of Mr. Drebber having done as you suggest is nil.
It seems the defense's assertion was somewhat wide of the mark. Lord Manjix, you will submit the contract as soon as, please.
Let's take a look at this. It's true. What's true? Alright, let's take a look at this contract. The investor, Mr. O.D. Asman, hereby enters into contract with the provider, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund labor and materials for the construction of a super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine. Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on the condition that both contracting parties are alive. Okay. So that's all we got, huh? Materials. The construction of a super high voltage instantaneous. Okay, that seems pretty cut and dry. That seems pretty cut and dry. Signature compared to card. Ooh! Hold on, that's a good point. Do we still have that card? I don't think we still have that card. I think we gave it to Toby Maguire. Yeah, we no longer have the business card. Drebber had no opportunity to switch the birdcage under the stage of the one in the Crystal Tower. He couldn't have done it. And in any case, I have no idea what his motive might have been. There's one aspect of your argument that still holds true, however. There were 2 birdcages. The prosecution is unable to deny that. So I'm sure you're on the right lines, Mr. Naruhodo. And I've no doubt there are other aspects of your assertion that are undeniable truths too.
Well, it would seem that the defense has no rejoinder to offer.
Well, I must say I'm a little surprised. I came here to testify about the machine I built, and instead my reputation is defiled. But the prosecution counter has set the record straight, I think. It's impossible that I'm the culprit.
Objection.
I don't think we have any copies of Asman's signature now. Why am I blurry? Alright. Beginning of the trial, we believe there was only 1 birdcage. Let's see if we have anything with Asman's signature. No, we don't. Yet now we know there must have been 2. In other words, there was more to the demonstration than we realized at first. I think it's abundantly clear that the same applies to the culprit.
Get to the point!
The stage demonstration was constructed and set up in its entirety by you, Mr. Drebber. Therefore, it's inconceivable that you had no hand in the events that transpired. So if circumstances mean it's impossible that you could have carried out the crime yourself, it points to the fact that someone else was involved.
Someone else? Counsel, are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord, Mr. Drebber had an accomplice.
An accomplice now? Well then, I presume you're prepared for what's to come. Now that you're accusing not only this witness, but someone else of the most serious of crimes. These accusations turn out to be false, then make no mistake. The prosecution will demand an equally serious punishment for your slander.
Well, counsel, do you intend to pursue this course and formally accuse another party of involvement in the matter?
What do I do here? At the moment, this is little more than a hunch on my part. I don't know for sure if Drebber had an accomplice, or even if he really is the culprit here. One way or another, though, I have to make my position clear as a lawyer. So what's my stance going to be? Did Drebber have an accomplice, or not? The defense is ready to name Mr. Drebber's accomplice. Somehow the two bird cages must have been switched. Everything points to that. Yet according to the coroner's report, that's not a possibility. But that inconsistency itself is a clue.
Counsel?
My lord.
You have received a strong warning already, if you are nevertheless determined. Then I must now ask you to identify this alleged accomplice by name. So, your answer, please. Who do you claim to have been Mr. Drebber's accomplice?
I think it was a certain Courtney Scythe, potentially. Maybe not. The name of the person in question is...
What's wrong, my Nipponese friend? Surely fear doesn't bind your tongue now. It's a little late for that.
Of course I'm afraid. After all, naming her in this capacity is definitely going to make waves. A lot of waves. I could very well turn every single person in this courtroom against me. I'm sure we'll be alright, Mr. Naruhodo. Thank you, Mrs. Otto. The enemy always appears larger than life, but you'll appear exactly the same to the enemy. Alright then, here goes.
You've kept us waiting long enough. Your answer, counsel, now.
The person who colluded with Mr. Drebber in order to carry out this wicked crime is Scotland Yard's coroner, Dr. Courtney Scythe!
What in blazes are you talking about? Dr. Scythe?
The head of the forensic investigation team in the coroner who conducted the autopsy of the victim? Ah, I can't believe it! Oh my god!
Mama, can I kill this man?
We know there were two bird cages, so who could have carried out the switch to complete the illusion? The accident happened in front of a huge crowd of spectators, and the area was immediately sealed off. Then everyone, police officers included, were banished to make way for the forensic investigation team. When else could the switch have occurred? It can only have been in that team's presence. It's essential that the court determines exactly what happened following the incident. The defense demands that Dr. Scythe be summoned to the witness stand at once to testify.
You got nerve, lad! Standing up there and dragging the yard's name through the mud!
I didn't mean to.
I know that woman very well. There's no better dead room worker out there. How dare you call her a criminal?
My learned friend's imagination appears to be wilder than the East End at night. But the recklessness of your accusations aside, there's another grave problem with your argument. Grave, get it? Because she's a coroner? I'm funny. I'm Van Zeeks. I'm a clown. Not a vampire. One which the prosecution demands you address at once.
A grave problem?
Oh my word, what wordplay from Van Zeeks.
Who do you claim acted as the victim's doppelganger? What?
Certainly, if the birdcage containing the body of the victim was exchanged for another, that cage must also have contained a body.
And yet, no missing persons or accidental deaths of anyone, even remotely resembling the victim, have been reported. Which means there was no one, dead or alive, who could have fulfilled the role of a body double for Mr. Agsman.
You're right. There was no one. That's true. They weren't dead or alive. Well, they were dead at some point. My argument is that there were 2 bird cages and there must have also been 1 person inside each. But I don't know if I've got the answer to this yet, have I? What can I do to reveal how this body double stunt was achieved? There's nothing I can do at the moment. Because I can't prove that. I can't explain that at the moment.
Oh, really? And when can the court expect an explanation?
Maybe tomorrow?
Fuck! Then you could take your leave of us until then.
Shit, okay.
People who procrastinate lose everything in the end, Mr. Naruhodo.
Isn't that slightly over the top? Okay, I get... Fuck, I mean, we agree what it is, right? I mean... Wait, no. I was thinking the other wax, but the other wax was Drebber, not If only we could look at his head, man. I guarantee it looked like Asmon. I'll think again. What can I do to reveal how this body double stunt was achieved? How? Maybe it's not a piece of evidence? Accuse her luck. This is tough. This case we've already had two head scratchers already. The question is, we could either name to spells, or we could present the. I'm gonna. Very well. The defense will address my learned friend's concerns by revealing the identity of the person who acted. No, that's not what I wanted. No, I didn't want the person who acted. Fuck. Okay, let's try that again. Very well. The defense will address my learned friend's concerns by presenting evidence that reveals the true nature of Mr. Asmon's body double.
Good gracious, evidence. I do hope this isn't a filibustering council. The court is expecting a name.
If you think you have relevant evidence, present it now.
The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon that was floating above the stage, which means that any witnesses would have only seen them from 60 feet away. So who was it that appeared out of the explosion some 18 meters above the spectators? Aha! The body double inside the second birdcage was... Fuck. Yeah, but the thing is... But it's a mask. We can't show it's a mask. Damn, I can't believe Suzato wants to fuck a camera. Wait, is she stealing shit? He's giving out having a watch. Fuck. Look, Mr. Naruhodo, what is it?
On the bellows just here, there seem to be some very dark red stains.
Oh shit! There's some blood on there. It's like blood, actually. Holy, I didn't even fucking notice that.
Oh my,
I'm sure that's not what you're thinking. Okay. Okay. No, I swear to God, I didn't fucking see that blood at all. I'm fucking blind. I was thinking, why the fuck do we have this camera? Oh shit! Yeah! Yeah!
Take that!
Because the glass. We know the victim, Mr. Asman, was in the birdcage that was situated in the kinesis machine on stage. Therefore, he couldn't have been inside the second birdcage. Instead, that contained something else. What's been described as a body double, which is what fell from the sky and crashed into the crystal tower.
Yes, Counsel, according to your somewhat elaborate version of events.
And that body double inside the second birdcage was, in fact... It's alright, Mr. Naruhodo. You're ready for this. Just steel yourself and come out with wax. Thank you, Mrs. Otto. I needed that. As I was saying, the body double inside the second birdcage was, as unbelievable as it may seem, that thing there. Why the fuck is it here? Why did we bring it with us?
Open your eyes and look into mine, my Nipponese friend. Now tell me, what are you playing at?
Stand firm now, Ryunosuke. This is your time to show my Japanese spirit. As the court will observe, this is a waxwork model. A model, in fact, of an infamous London murder from 10 years ago. The Professor!
Objection! You started by indicting the leader of the forensic investigation team as an accomplice to this crime. And now you've moved on to indicting waxworks?
Yes! That's about the size of it.
But why? And why this waxwork? It looks nothing like the victim. In fact, it could hardly resemble him less. What possible justification can you give?
If you want to know why, ask Mr. Drebber.
What?
Just days before Professor Harebrain performed his public demonstration, Mr. Drebber abducted this model from Madame Tuspel's.
Did you say abducted?
And 2 days after the incident at the Great Exhibition, he returned it to the museum.
Then the timing.
Is this true, Mr. Drebber?
At first, I couldn't see why Mr. Drebber would have stolen the waxwork and then given it back again. But now the reason is clear. He took it so that he could put it inside the second birdcage as a body double for Mr. Asman.
Objection! Are you hearing this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Are you hearing the defense's astonishing proposal? That the witness fabricated this vast machine with the intention of deceiving some wretched scientist. That he had some collusion with the country's finest coroner on a public stage in front of a vast audience. And that, to effect the deception, he used a waxwork model that in no way resembles the victim. Are we really to believe this far-fetched tale? What do you decide?
Objection!
Wait! Yes, if you put it like that, of course it sounds implausible.
My lord, I need to speak, if you please. Go ahead, Mr. Foreman. Myself and my colleagues have reached an agreement.
Oh yeah, it's time. It's time for the thing.
Very good, in that case. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your lease the court here now.
Guilty!
Yeah.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Kill me!
So as indicated by the foreman, the jury has reached a consensus.
I knew that was gonna happen. We shall get through this, Mr. Naruhodo, as we always do. And then cover some new truths along the way, I'm quite sure. Yes, I agree. I'm gonna have to appeal to the jurors as usual and see what if I can persuade them to change their minds.
The defense will now embark on a submission examination. Are you and your fellows ready to proceed, Mr. Foreman?
We didn't even ask this time. He just knows that we do this shit.
We are, my lord.
Very well.
In that case, I ask you to now state clearly for all present to hear the grounds on which each of you has decided that the defendant is guilty of the crime.
You know, this is the first summation examination where they could actually all have, like, legitimate reasons. I'm so excited.
I've known that woman for years. She'd never be accomplish anything. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another.
Oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it?
I have had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much.
I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture.
Causing someone to rob right evidence is he's not a proper job, is he? I won't have it.
Did I say siblings? So unsurprisingly, it seems the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceedings has polarized opinion. He was born with brown hair. It's true.
Given that its face is obscured and its build in no way resembles that of the victim, I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it is Mr. Asmund's body double.
Yes, the applause is deafening. And yes, I know it seems extraordinary. But that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used, why it had to be this model. Really? A reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced. It's something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs. Yes, agreed. I have to find a way out of this.
If you are ready, Counsel, you may proceed with the information examination.
Let's go.
On that one for years, never been accomplished anything.
Hold it!
Yeah, I'm pretty tired. The order thing seems to have changed around here for some reason.
I'm a copper, lad. It's a copper just gets to bend the rules sometimes when he's must. What's wrong with that?
Can you please put the gun away?
I've been working in the yard for 40-odd years.
That's even more than I thought.
We'd only had a Metropolitan Police Service in town for 70 years, you know. Of course, times have changed. People didn't trust coppers back when I started. It was rough. We had to fight crime and we had to fight to win the public's trust as well. And when we did, and the science was in its infancy too, even more than it is now. And she spearheaded the revolution.
Dr. Scythe, you mean?
That's right. About 10 years ago now it was. When I was still the youngest Bobby on the beat. That's when she started making a name for herself as a top-class coroner. And now look at her. Head of a forensic investigation team. And a woman no less. Well, you won't hear me complain. It's what we all dreamt of back then, I tell you.
Could you tell me without holding that gun in the air?
We were all out to uphold justice, lad. Full of him we are. Full of him.
That's coming across loud and clear. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another.
Hold it!
Can you put that away? But we're only just starting to understand this case. What are you reading there, sir?
The man behind those murders on Solar Pond Street was caught in 2 days flat. That's real policing for you.
That's really not relevant to this case, is it?
You're wrong there. Because it was Dr. Scythe in charge of examining the bodies, and it was evidence arising from her work that led to the arrest of the scoundrel responsible.
Oh.
That's right! Oh, that woman is at the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she's somehow involved in this murky business is a load of old tosh.
I thought it was up to me to press the jurors, not the other way around. Oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely the waxwork man who stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it?
Hold it!
Why would you assume that?
Well, quite simply because that unsettling swindler has no relationship with the woman, does he?
True. As it stands, we don't know of any connection.
Oh gosh, but it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow to have a mutual interest in the waxwork.
Romantic?
A woman of society such as myself views everything in terms of relationships, you know.
Well, you learn something new every day, even if you don't want to.
One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and this coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there.
This woman may be more astute than I've been giving her credit for.
If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Dr. Scythe would be enough.
Yes, I agree. As soon as we have even a whiff of connection, she'll be the first to know. I have had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much.
Hold it!
What sort of problems? Let's just say we have run into each other on numerous occasions while I've been performing in the street. Right, I see. Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences. So we perform our great magic in parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult.
Excuse me.
Someone's gaydar is on point, true. Do you have something to say to that, to Mr. Ottermole?
Are you calling a mass murderer?
Sorry, my mistake. I got confused because I heard you look like him.
I don't look anything like the man. You want me locked up, Sonny?
Thanks, Mr. Sholmes. Perhaps we can move on. I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what juror number 3 just said. And clearly you do.
Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this.
What was it like, sir?
We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust, we did. And by Jove, we earned it. People respected us back then.
I respected you.
No one would have called a coroner into question in them days. A coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right. Especially when Dr. Courtney Stevens put her name...
Hold up. Hold up, 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 hold up.
She was the best of the best, and the apple of the force's eye.
Hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens?
Sorry, got a bit carried away there.
Stevens is Dr. Side's maiden name.
Her maiden name. So that's before she was married.
Of course, yes, silly me. Yeah, it's Side now, isn't it?
Stevens. I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere recently.
Anyway, the point is, those were the great days of policing, not like now.
So I interrupt, sir. But do you think you could change your statement and to include that name?
Well, sure, I don't see why not.
Very good.
She was Courtney Stevens back when I knew her, of course, a legendary coroner, even then.
Objection.
Those two statements clearly contradict each other.
Good gracious. To whose statements do you refer, counsel?
So, juror number 2.
Oh gosh, me? What can I do for you?
I presume that you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe, which in turn has revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before.
Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I find such connections and relationships irresistible. But, oh golly, I'm afraid I fail to see what you mean.
Dr. Scythe's maiden name is Stevens, and through that name, the coroner is very definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. The defense has evidence to prove it. Thank you, Gregson.
My goodness, evidence, you say? How utterly enthralling.
Of their substance, you claim?
Of course, my lord. I would ask the court to look at this. The evidence that clearly links Dr. Scythe to the mass murder known as the Professor.
Take that!
I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago.
A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have?
It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the waxwork, the killer known as the Professor.
The Professor's? But the man was a capital offender, so...
That's right. This is the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. What's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens.
Oh my, Courtney Stevens!
Struggle away!
It appears that the professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Scythe 10 years ago. And a few days ago, Mr. Drebber very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from Madame Dispels. Waxwork that doesn't, in fact, resemble the victim and Strasman at all.
And do you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those events?
Absolutely, I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the Professor case is at the heart of a link that we have yet to uncover. Between Dr. Courtney Scythe and Mr. Enoch Trevor.
Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is all most extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further.
Not guilty, hell yeah.
Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's this cloud of suspicion hanging over the yard's best corner. It wasn't like this in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end.
Alright, 2 more.
It's the professor. That's what links the frightful swindler in the corner.
Hold it!
Would you claim the whole instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a trick?
That I did, but there's more than one way to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't there?
Sorry?
I grant you, given that this cage appeared from a mentioned explosion, there had been no need to use a real person. But if a waxwork had been used, the culprit could at least have had the decency to make it look like the victim.
I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency.
The point is, if you're going to make a claim about that waxwork being inside the birdcage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science.
Suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow of the Royal Society. Well, that perhaps means his mind could be changed if we manage to present this unsuitable evidence. Evidence that the Professor Waxwork was inside that birdcage. Can I produce that or not? Professor Waxwork was inside the birdcage. Yes! Actually, I have something I'd like you to see, sir.
Oh? I must warn you that I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats. So given your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation here.
So you don't trust anyone in black? Looking at the mirror must be very trying. I do have some evidence that proves the waxwork was inside that birdcage. Namely...
Take that!
What's that? Piece of glass? Though it's unusually thick for glass.
Yes, it's a piece of broken glass that we found inside the jacket on the waxwork. Clothes racist, that's exactly what I was thinking. As you say, it's not ordinary glass, though. It's very thick. It's very thick, clearly made for extra breeding. Wanna fuck some glass, son? Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower.
The Crystal Tower. Holy smoke!
Exactly! Holy smoke indeed! The centerpiece of the Great Exhibition, where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window of that special glass.
From whence this small piece originated. Is that it?
Precisely. So, what do you say? Now that the clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you.
Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say color shouldn't come into it.
Look at this guy! Slightly open-minded.
In light of what you show me here, yes, I feel obliged to change my position on the matter. In that case, juror number 4, you will amend your statement now, please. The presence of that piece of glass leaves me in a little doubt that the waxwork was indeed outside it, that birdcage.
Accused someone without evidence? Can I just pit these two? I don't know if that counts.
Hold it!
Could I ask, why have you brought that corn into the court with you?
Colonel Cobb, he's been growing back on the phone. Picked him up on my way into town. He's a proper nibbler, he is.
Yes, the nibbling seems to be taking quite a while. Maybe it could wait until after the trial?
Oh, I don't like the sound of that. You need colonels at a time like this. Whenever I start big to decide, the colonels always point me in the right direction, see?
You're talking about your cob of corn?
Nibble not guilty out. Nibble not guilty bowel. Nibble not guilty out. Nibble not guilty bowel. Nibble not guilty out.
Okay. Perhaps it's akin to fortune telling with flower petals like people do back at home. So Professor Hairbrand's fate is to be decided by a cob of corn. Could you not at least wait until we've had more time to find the truth before deciding on the defendant's guilt?
Oh, I don't know about that. My time's awfully full already.
Amazing! Well, I'm glad I didn't skip this. I know it seems a little far-fetched to think the waxwork model of the professor was in that birdcage. But on the other hand, it explains a lot. If there really is a reason why that particular waxwork had to be used in Mr. Asmund's body double, we must do everything we can to make the jurors understand it. Truth is, I'm sure that the key to this, but that's the most puzzling part too. In case you should see what additional information you can glean whilst trying to change the jurors' minds. You can read a book whilst eating a rice cracker, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm sure you can do this. Right. Yes. Alright, Let's double press here.
Hold it!
Thank you for reconsidering your position, sir.
Your words are misplaced, boy. My opinion is governed by logic and science and nothing else. Yes, science's way should direct your words of gratitude.
Ah. Thank you, science.
What's the matter with you? Too good to say some words of thanks to the mother of all academic subjects?
What is it about scientists, honestly? Alright, well, let's try and pit these two.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other.
Good gracious. To whose statements do you refer, counsel?
If you could put down your corn for a moment, juror number 5.
Oh, you mean me?
You pointed out that it's wrong to make an accusation without evidence. But the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the second birdcage on the day in question is not without supporting evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the juror sitting beside you.
Oh, is that right?
Would it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument?
Well, I don't understand much besides count of cop, to be honest.
Of course you don't.
If I could interject here.
Please do, sir.
Now that this assertion of yours about the waxwork has been backed up by some solid evidence, it would be wrong of me as a matter of science not to pursue the matter further.
Ah, well, me too then.
Sorry?
If this brainy gentleman says he's right, then he must be. See, I wouldn't dream of going against Colonel Cobble anyone who's got stuff in between his ears.
Alright, cool. We'll take it. We'll fucking take it. Success, if you can call it that. Thank you, counsel, that will do.
As a result of the summation examination, the jury's overall leaning has changed. 2 jurors now call guilty, against 4 who call not guilty. Accordingly, the court has failed to reach a consensus at this time. And the trial must continue.
We did it.
Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. Another wonderful victory.
A waxwork of the despicable professor. Uses a body double for the victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say it's extremely hard to believe this it could possibly be true. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation.
It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber to Dr. Scythe. And I'm convinced that there's a special significance to that link.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't.
The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony.
Meh. If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness.
The owner?
Madame Tuspels.
No, I really thought that Lord Van Zeeks would object to this whole line of inquiry.
Very well, I concur. Make arrangements for Madame Tuspels to appear as a witness with immediate effect.
Listen carefully, my learned friend.
Oh, yes?
You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box. The
Court shall now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness and prepare for her taking the stand.
Madame Tuspels, yes. I shall see to it at once, my lord.
Alrighty. Oh boy! Alrighty. 3 down, 1 to go. But before we continue, it's a restroom break time. Is Pandora... She's gonna be Pandora. Let's run an ad. Running an ad, running an ad. Whoop-a-doopa. Alrighty, dighty, mighty dighty. Alrighty, mighty dighty. Let's do it. Back into it. The Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber.
Ah, the knight errant himself.
Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes?
I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least.
I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself.
I have to ask, what on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he?
Of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago.
Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. But who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies.
Damn true, Cabelliot, true. As it turns out, Lord Van Zeek is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realized, isn't he?
Yes, how true. He's a great friend from university in the dock.
And now a waxworker, the killer who took his esteemed brother's life, makes an appearance too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man.
You make it sound deliberate.
I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling.
Oh yes, in what particular manner?
Well, there's Mr. Drubba, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zeeks. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow.
Yes, in fact, I, alone, am not a member of the set.
Though that leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other.
Excuse me? Oh, hello. Dr. Scythe.
Ah, Courtney Scythe, Miss Stevens. Good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. This was very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray?
You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you?
Why would you assume such a thing?
Because Gregson told me. To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory, wielding my scalpel. I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfected.
The policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Scythe, and I've accused you of being a complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened.
That certainly won't be possible. Lord Van Zeeks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it.
Lord Strongheart?
The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide it from the truth, that's cowardice. I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, none at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you.
She mentioned it too, this Pandora's box.
Whatever does it all mean?
There's really no cause for concern. I assure you, when the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you'd like it to or not.
Huh?
Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits!
I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much.
Ah, yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass.
Gotcha, thank you.
Good, I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bowl of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away the truth.
Yep. These are stories once. What did that warning from Mr. Shums really mean, I wonder? Especially that bit about whatever may come to pass. It's time for the final chapter then. Now I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue?
The prosecution is ready, my lord.
Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready.
As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Grand Exhibition, yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation.
As seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord.
So then, let us begin our explanation of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was carnally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zeeks,
My lord,
are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tuspels?
not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak and ready to be summoned.
Very well. Bring in the witness.
At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tuspels to the stand.
Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Drebber is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Scythe.
And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork.
Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present, it's all we have to go on. She's making one of Sholmes.
State your name and occupation for the court, please.
My name is Madame Esmeralda Tuspels. I'm a waxwork artisan and the proprietors of the Madame Tuspels Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon.
Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are two of them in the world.
Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face?
A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this?
Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it had been kidnapped.
A waxwork model kidnapped?
Yes, my lord, there was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim.
At present, that is no more than a conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim in the case in question, Mr. Odie Asman.
But of course, I know him well. He is a part of my Otis Personages exhibit. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Asman does not resemble the professor at all.
Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar.
Are you suggesting that we should see now the masked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock.
This is absurd!
Pardon?
I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly, it won't be that of the actual killer.
Indeed. The man's identity was never made public after all.
The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way the repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information.
Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the two spells principles.
What principals? You have vice principals too? They're gonna send me home because I was bad in class?
The family two spells have always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity, et voilà our principles. There's a well-known legend about the two spells waxwork from the time of the French Revolution.
Did you fucking grave rob him?
A member of the two spells family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now.
I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually, at the guillotine site.
You are correct. The mold is on display still at the House of Horrors. The two spells will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear me, somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. Is get it after they are dead. It has been my family's secret for generations.
Do you mean to say beneath that mask?
Oui, the true visage of the killer is there.
This is ludicrous. It's out of the question!
The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tussauds special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave is a sight to behold. You should come.
I think, madame, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model, and your personal involvement in its creation.
With pleasure.
The Professor Waxwork.
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with Tussauds family principles. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
Lisa from Genshin Impact, don't say that to me, man. I've never played that game. I don't want to.
The gravedigger, the man sanctioned this.
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, huh?
So you truly saw it? The face of that monster!
Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret. But two spells would not be two spells if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this.
I myself have seen the special exhibit in your museum, madame. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article. It was most detailed account of what happened as reported.
Hold on. Hold the fuck on. Why was this signed by Mr. Odie Asman? Hey guys, in the picture, how the fuck do I point over there? It's signed by Odie Asman. What? My bean is being freaked. Mr. Drebber saw it. It was drawn by Mr. Odie Asman. Dr. Syed did the coronation. What the fuck?
Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words.
The public enjoys absurdity, monsieur. That is why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum.
And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it?
It is correct. The professor you see before you here.
Most puzzling. Can I try the defense? Proceed with your cross-examination.
This waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Scythe, and there has to be some reason for that, which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in on this crime together. Alright, I don't think she's lying about anything. I think she's on the level, so we just gotta press her. Special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that chunks society in London. And that rumor would be
a 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget.
Right, I know just what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else.
Yes, that story will never disappear.
The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead. That is the central attraction in my House of Horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was just like this. It was in Lowgate Cemetery behind the prison, in the dead of night after the execution of the killer. The interned professor slid back the stone slab covering his tomb and emerged from his grave. A young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him. But an instant later, he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran for his life.
the corpse climbed out of his own grave?
And then somebody shot him. Who was it? And nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor. Perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. The good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why it was in every newspaper across the capital.
But was it just a story? I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today at your museum, isn't it?
Oui, the special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterward, the contents of that article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. Madame, might I say something? Please go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often rumors contain elements of the truth. I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people of Europe. Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful? It is not possible for the dead to come back to life.
Sorry?
10 years ago, I was there in Lowgate Cemetery, after the criminal known as the professor was killed by hanging. I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before he was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead.
I see.
It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate.
An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse in accordance with two special principles.
Is that true of every waxwork in your museum, then?
It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know.
What sort of letters?
When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Comment ça?
No!
My museum is famous, monsieur. To be made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals, a symbol of status even.
Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax.
And it is thanks to one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of the special exhibit, of course, the Professor.
Whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse.
There are no exceptions to the principles of two steps. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold of the head in the cemetery just before the interment.
Surely that's illegal, isn't it?
It seemed that the proprietors of this repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed.
It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him, to record his history. It is the raison d'etre of this Two-Spells Museum.
But if the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity.
I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the Professor.
Do you realize what you're saying? The Professor's identity is a national secret!
I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close.
Of course it will. As will your entire museum if you don't tread very carefully, madame.
That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think, don't you?
So 10 years ago, on the night of the professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse.
Oui, exactement.
Until I gave you a signal.
Hold it!
You were there longer than you expected to be?
I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open and I had some problems with the chin.
Dare I ask?
The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have had an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time.
What do you mean?
When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death.
Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant?
It is because of rigor mortis.
Wrigley mortis?
It's the name given to the phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to the relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered.
Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one.
As the Mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in his jaw.
I see. So that's why you wait.
Before that time, the mouth falls open, and it's very difficult to do my work.
It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. I wonder if that about the information occurred. Yeah, it's significant. The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us, would you mind including in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see.
Of course, I do not mind at all. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave.
Thank you, Cesato. This is exactly the time for jokes, Cesato. Thank you very much for that.
Madam, kindly amend your testimony is discussed.
Bien sûr.
It took a very long time for me because of the concept of rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said that it starts at the jaw about 3 hours post-death. Is that right?
Oui, c'est ça. Of course, the exact duration depends a little on the season.
Wait, what? I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject.
No, that is only elementary knowledge in the field of legal medicine.
Well, I had no idea about it. Maybe I won't admit to ignorance about forensic science.
I could ask my father to give you a very simple primer if you like.
I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them.
Oh dear. I'll do my very best. As dawn approached, I was very well worried that I could be discovered.
You said the dawn was approaching. What was the time of day then, approximately?
Well, I could not say, but when I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible.
The execution took place on the 17th of June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year.
Indeed it did. First light would have been around 4:40 in the morning.
That really is early.
The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in half an hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry.
Is it me, or does Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too?
You certainly appear to go the extraordinary lengths for your work, madam.
I wonder. Is what she said particularly significant? Sure. Adam, those details about how long it took you to complete the sculpture and the early sunrise, could you include them in your testimony? I believe they may be significant.
Of course, if you would like me to. You're quite right, Mr. Naruhodo. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it?
It's not quite what I meant by significant.
Kindly make your formal testimony then, madam.
With pleasure, my lord.
Alright. Oh, did we lose the other thing? Took her half an hour.
Hold it!
Did you have reason to believe you might be discovered once the sun came up or something?
I had paid the gravedigger money to keep my little secret, of course. But with the morning light, I knew that the warden from the prison would commence his patrol of the area.
Couldn't you just have paid off the warden too, then?
I had already paid the gravedigger, as I said. You cannot buy the silence of everyone, or the secret is no longer a secret, eh?
The sunrise was at 4:40 a.m. that day, which means that would have been around 4 when you began your sculpting work.
Oh, oui, that must be correct. That would be when the gravedigger gave me the signal to come out of hiding.
So, that's all I have to go on.
What's your feeling, Mr. Naruhodo?
For some reason, Dr. Scythe went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if that's really true, then the professor is the only other thing we know of that links the pair of them. So I feel sure that waxwork must be clued to this mystery somehow.
In that case, we must use this cross-examination to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, the jurors are sure to revert their leanings, and the trial will be over.
I agree. Interestingly, uncovering what the professor has to do with all this means more to Lord Van Zieks than anyone. That's the impression I'm getting anyway.
Yes, as do I.
For all, he has a profound connection with the professor as well. Alright, let's take a look at what we have. Okay. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight. So if he was killed at midnight, and she started at 4 in the morning, rigor mortis would have already started. And she wants rigor mortis, right? She does it during rigor mortis. Which means he would have died later, or he wouldn't have been dead. It was before the onset of rigor mortis. It was before the onset of rigor mortis, but that can't be true. Let's examine this. Do we have a time on here? No, this is just gonna be for Odiasmin. Okay.
Objection!
Madam Dispels, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows.
And is that a problem?
I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another.
Oh, quoi?
Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend?
According to her testimony, Madame Tuspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn. And at the time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, Madame?
You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time.
But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Syde's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th of June.
No!
If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would have already have set in.
Yes, you are right. The chin would have been completely stiff.
In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection! No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd.
In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time.
I'm impossible!
You are impossible. It's true.
Order, counsel, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you implicate the members of the staff of Barclay Prison where the execution took place. By heck! Extraordinary! Not in my day!
It literally in your day.
My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact.
What fact?
The professor died that night. Without question.
He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands. There was no...
Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows?
Didn't die it? Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case?
It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night.
Counsel, present the evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened on the night of the professor's execution.
Take that!
What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery.
You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now?
Well, if this article is to be believed, yes, the professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection! Don't be a fool! That's simply a rumor, published by the gutter press.
Can you be certain of that?
Are you serious?
The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened.
My word, yes indeed.
Ma oui, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection! Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself. But obviously the man made it all up.
And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him.
On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well.
What?
Are you suggesting, counsel, that you've identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place?
Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say he's right here before my very eyes.
You will substantiate your latest claim now then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness of this staggering scene?
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Drebber?
The previous witness?
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tuspel's Museum of Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon a terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Order! Surely not, counsel.
Drebber was there? In Lowgate Cemetery?
What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant?
Of course, Madame Tuspels doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, Madame. To your situation as well, in fact.
What situation?
The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man.
No! But that would mean...
Madame Tuspels. It would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber.
Yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past.
What?
Oh my.
Good gracious.
Explain yourself! Tell us everything you know!
Yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court.
You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article?
Goodness me. Yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London and a resident of its student dorms.
Unbelievable.
When I read that article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my House of Horrors, whether it was the truth or not.
I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt a waxwork of the man, did you?
Exactement. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery.
Van Zeeks? Thoughts, Van Zeeks? So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today. Even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asman, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated Dr. Scythe would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why?
Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying?
Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as a body double. It's blackmail. He didn't even have to be there. They worked together, they didn't even have to be working together. He's just using his blackmail. This court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected.
But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us so herself, didn't she?
Fuck you! Lord Van Zeeks will be summoning as a witness. Lord Strongheart said, fuck you! He's the big bad guy! He tells time like Obama.
Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zeeks.
The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
Hell yeah! Van Zeeks, let's go!
But Lord Van Zeeks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection! I don't give a fuck! The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me.
Yes. Let's go, brother.
Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together.
It's happening!
Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Scythe of the Forensic Investigation Team. The one is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders.
All right, then. Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away. I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. He was never killed the first time. The only reason he died is because the fucking person shot him.
Thank you for your attendance on such short notice, Dr. Scythe.
I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zeeks. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles.
Was he being left alive on purpose? I think so. I'm guessing yes. It's more juicy that way. Maybe they really wanted to suffer. I mean, if they put a fucking like mask on him and fucking put him in the ground, like that's torture. Like that is straight up torture.
I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as any prosecutor worth his salt.
Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? He could have escaped. Cahoots? Maybe. At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago.
You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and officially pronounced him dead.
That remains to be seen.
Is that so?
According to newspaper reports from the time on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life.
Don't waste my time.
And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Science. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate with you in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery.
So he was the shooter who shot.
You can see the resemblance actually, can't you? With the man and Madame Dispels, I mean.
Surely he's not going to claim that's really what he saw, especially not after all these years.
He was a research student at the University of London, was he? And a bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me.
What an interesting twist. When at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Now, yet here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in a court of law, too. Very well, then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank.
Okay, well, I'll be Frank. Van Zeeks, you can be Frank Van Zeeks. Guy without his memory, you can be, we'll call you Frank Sama. Suzato, you're gonna be Frank Mikotaba. Who else? We got Dr. Scythe, so we got Dr. Frank. We got Judge Frank. Who else? Who else is gonna be Frank?
I refuse to be called Dr. Frank. That's fucking stupid.
So, Mr. Frank, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago.
Yeah, you can be Frank too, Frankie Sunshine.
You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled upon in Lowgate Cemetery.
Yes, of course, as you wish.
In the cemetery 10 years earlier.
The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realize that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of the newspaper article.
Wait a minute. You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now?
Of course, you'd have to have a screw loose if you believed a corpse could come back from the dead.
But, so, you're saying this article is...
Not worth the paper it's printed on? I think that would describe it perfectly, yes.
If the details in the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Webber and Dr. Scythe would have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument?
Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right, grave robbing to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
Grave robbing, you say, Scoob?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative.
The fuck it is?
Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead.
So you are one of the so-called resurrectionists, particularly unpleasant scourge on society.
Actually, my fellows and I went by another name. The Repurposers.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see.
Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article?
Ah, yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done. Claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish, very foolish.
Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now.
At once, my lord. We have a name. Van Zeeks. You literally said who wrote this. Literally, there's a fucking name there.
The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. Thinking back now, I realize I never actually saw the professor at all, though. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist. It was all because of that newspaper article.
Hold it!
Motive for murder? Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. This article, you mean? Published in the Daily Circus.
Yes, somebody informed the dean that it was my name that appeared in the article. And carelessly let slip that night after night I was digging up graves. Hardly a model student, you might say. The university's reputation was execrably defiled, and I was expelled as a result. Mon Dieu, I had no idea.
Having been run out of university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade.
Yes.
You combined your knowledge of science with knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology. You used those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investors into giving you money. Professor Albert Harebrain was just your latest victim, wasn't he?
Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort.
What's Trevor up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim? Wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now. What circumstances? Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging alive from his grave 10 years ago, he'll expose the secret Dr. Scythe passed that she would desperately want to hide. Yes, of course! If Trevor and Dr. Scythe are working together now, Then if Trevor were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. I'll have to prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead, as he originally claimed. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly.
Hold it!
By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you?
Surely you only need to look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge the answer to that.
The lantern and spade.
But who on earth would want to buy a dead body?
Any major hospital.
A hospital?
In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means. As aspiring scientists, we young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we made surreptitious arrangements with a hospital via some of our medical student acquaintances. Though we would never take anything of value from the graves, this was all for the furtherance of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at night, spade in hand.
You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest consequences.
Gravest. Nice one, buddy.
We students were indeed caught between the hammer and the anvil. We needed funds for research.
Professor Harebrain said exactly the same.
I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you've revealed this abhorrent behavior.
Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected it to end the way it did. That I regret to this day. Yes, the illustration is based on what I witnessed.
Hold it!
The strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny.
Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police at the time, you know. I was shaking like a leaf. But they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself.
So you went to the papers instead?
I started big with the London News, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was reporters from the gossip rags, the gutter press, that came to get my story. And it spread like the plague through the capital as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale.
The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets.
And yet only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories.
What about the article in the Daily Circus?
That particular journalist found me in my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night.
And from your description, he drew this illustration?
Precisely. That's how I learned that the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see.
Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate then?
Well. Thinking back now, I never saw the professor at all.
What are you talking about?
I think I explained already, didn't I? Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison, so it was the renowned among...
Bum 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 bum.
For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night. And as a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life.
Do the Shamsbury does.
Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum.
Shamsbury looking kind of sus. But you said you actually saw it.
I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course...
You have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night. I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could really show what he did with the professor? The camera. He has the camera in this picture.
Oh, the blood! The gunshot is splattered on him, maybe?
If we have anything at all, Mr. Naruhodo, I know. I need to present it against that irritating and backtracking statement of his.
The point is that night was a pivotal moment in my life. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman.
Hold it!
Must be nice getting visited by a young woman. Damn, Enoch, I wish I was you. That young woman being Madame Tuspel's, of course.
Precisely, I must say I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later. As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article and, comme ça, I found the man.
Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said.
I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me.
So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be put on display.
I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded. Ah, oui, I remember now. I purchased something else from you that day, n'est-ce pas? Did you? I can't say I remember.
What was it, madam?
His camera.
Ah.
Oh yes, I made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion into any cemetery.
You took a camera with you, sir. To what end?
To record the details of the bodies I'd disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it.
I see.
But I still have it, monsieur. It is a part of the special exhibit in my House of Horrors. I'm very meticulous about such details. It is the Tuspel's way.
It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to locate cemetery on the night in question. Yes, interesting. And we got a splash of blood on it.
Objection!
Wait, no? Wait, really? Fuck. Wait, hold on.
But I think you said this whole exchange was extremely jarring, yes.
Fuck. Wait, hold on. Hold on, I was convinced that that was it. Because we now have two pieces of evidence about the camera. Never actually saw the professor at all, though. But you have the bloodstain from the shot. I guess the bloodstain could have been there before, I guess. We've pressed on everything here. So here he just said he was grave robbing, and that's true. The illustration in the newspaper article is based on what you witnessed. That is true. Mad sheep rampage. Huh, okay. Okay, I guess we're saving again. What is the answer here? Okay, we have to present on this. We have to present that you did see. But it's not the camera.
Objection!
Okay, alright, I guess. I think that's a little silly, unless I'm missing something. Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that.
Don't believe what?
Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago.
Oh dear, we seem to be at odds, but I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see.
The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. The journalist, blah, 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 blah. A figure emerging from a tomb. They really are zooming in on Odie Asman. They really are zooming in on that, huh? A figure emerging from a tomb wearing an iron mask. Oh fuck, he wouldn't have known about the mask. True.
Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago.
But he said he didn't know it was the professor.
It was decided in the closed court ruling that the man would wear a mask to hide his identity. Wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial.
Not even the prison wardens went to see the man's face. But obviously, the provision of this mask was not public knowledge.
So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard,
Ah!
a lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. So unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that an artist would have included the mask in that illustration.
Ah!
True that.
Order, order! Well, Mr. Drebber?
It's a vile scene, isn't it, if you look closely? And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified, which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards, I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken.
You're still saying you didn't see it?
If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you.
Of course, only too happy to oblige.
I can't believe he's still not going to concede the point.
What I did in fact witness was a fellow grave robber at work.
Hold it!
A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about?
Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from a hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see.
You're claiming it was just another student on equally insalubrious business as yourself?
Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections. Clearly, the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity. Wouldn't you say?
Objection!
But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, in the next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more.
We might assume that the sexton discovery that miscreates a work, perhaps, and find upon one of them.
If a gravedigger had shot someone at the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord.
Yes, well.
I can only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the reporter.
Excuse me!
Madame Spells! Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes.
Oh la la, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts.
Would it be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way?
I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now. If you don't mind me saying, madam, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshot.
Stop! You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady.
Please, Madame Spells, carry on.
Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him and the bullet hit the condemned man.
I said nothing of the sort.
No, you were very explicit about the details. About the mask that the figure was wearing. And the blood that spattered over you when he was shot.
Enough! Shut up, woman! You're making all this up!
That will do. Mr. Drebber,
Yes?
you refute the encounters given by Madame Tussauds.
I have no recollection of ever saying those things.
Come on, do you really expect us to believe you?
Control yourself, Counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom.
Right.
Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness.
Very well. There was no gunshot from behind me at all, nor any spattering blood.
Oh, is it? Hey, buddy, you sure about that? Hey, buddy, you sure about that? Hey, buddy, you sure about that? Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera?
But that is the camera from the Faithful Knight.
Yeah, sorry, I stole it. Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber.
And is that supposed to be significant?
This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed that the lens extends forwards at the end of some bellows. Like this.
Hold it!
What's that? There, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain.
That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact.
Good Lord, are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a spatter of blood.
Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Scythe? It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood and not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough.
I propose that Madame Tussauds' testimony was correct. And on the night in question 10 years ago, you were spattered with blood from the gunshot wound.
Well,
And that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is you've been lying the fuck out to this court.
Objection!
But why? Why would he want to do that?
Well, not for his own gain, it would seem.
For whose then? Who could benefit?
Mr. Drebber is obviously lying in order to protect somebody.
My goodness, he's shielding someone.
Yes, my lord, and clearly, it's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor's coming back to life to be exposed.
Well, Counsel, who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect the lying blah 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 words are so fucking hard?
Take that!
The obvious answer is Dr. Scythe. Sure to ship.
Scythe.
Whatever do you mean?
Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light.
what are you insinuating?
And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor.
That would be an unprecedented scandal.
Objection!
This is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened.
Yes, that's exactly what it would mean.
Objection!
Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape. Not in Great Britain.
Objection!
But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging.
If that were really true, Counsel, the implications of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner. It would taint the honor of the entire judiciary from the ground up.
And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Scythe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime.
You mean...
I mean that Dr. Scythe wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asmund with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. Dispels is just like, what the fuck am I in? Lord Van Zeeks.
Pray forgive my freshly filled hallowed chalice, and a whole raft of other discourtesies now.
Goodness me.
It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing.
What's that?
If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night, only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger and disposed of him forever?
Well, I have no idea at the moment.
We have too little information to work that out at present, I think.
I couldn't agree more.
The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend?
Considered what?
Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary.
Quite. But to imagine any sum of money being offered for reasons could warrant it.
To rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake would be madness.
Well, I suppose.
This was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture and would be instrumental in future profits, too.
Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asmund at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me not receiving a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim now.
There is a contract, that's very true.
The motive for this case runs deep, though. I can feel it.
Using threats to force the head of the forensics investigation team to cooperate is extreme, especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place.
If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Asmund's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asmund. But why? What was his motive then?
Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we?
Cosmo ducks out of the way. He's like, whoop! Perfect. Cabellion, it happened. You predicted that he would be in the way of it, and you were right. Cosmo fucking limboing under fucking chalices.
At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence.
Alright. Who exactly was Mr. Asmund to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet, and I'm gonna have to present two pieces of evidence to show what it is. Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the victim wanted them is dead is right here. Okay, so we know. So establishes a motive and explains why one is dead. So this is one of them. Okay, so I'm gonna say this is one.
Take that!
If indeed this piece of evidence reveals the motive.
If, counsel?
Yes. If it did, it would be great. I was thinking, fuck, wait. But he said two pieces of evidence. Shit.
Usually my courtroom like a family that grants wishes when you throw money into it.
Shit, okay. You should have thrown more than a farthing in last time I was at the park.
I don't think this has anything to do with your offerings to the gods, Mr. Naruhodo.
At this point, okay. Alright, well, let's try this one more time and then we'll save. There's a connection here no one's seen yet. I'm gonna have to present two pieces of evidence. Okay, so I thought we were just gonna get two. I guess we have to do them in the right order.
Take that!
It's this newspaper article, my lord.
That was written 10 years ago, and every detail's been examined already. What can it possibly tell us?
That drivel should have never been written. It's typical gutter press nonsense that means nothing.
Yes, on its own, it isn't particularly significant. However, when considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Asmund dead.
What other evidence?
Counsel, you will present supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence with when cross-referenced with the newspaper article establishes a motive for the deed.
I mean, it's the fact that it's Asmund. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the science trophy, right?
Take that!
I think it's fair to say that after your presentation of evidence, Counsel, we have only half the story.
Fuck. That's right, my lord. Oh, wait, no, this is good. Which is why I just presented another piece of evidence to complete it. No, fuck. Okay.
Let me put it in words of 0 syllables that even you will understand.
Wait, I see it now. It's playing on syllabus and syllables. That's the irony. Contract has his signature! Shit, you're right, thank you. Yes, you're correct. I was okay, let me explain my thought process, because maybe if somebody's literally not in my brain, they think I'm literally fucking clicking on that trophy randomly. I was getting ahead of myself. I was thinking the connection was that that story ruined his life, and had it not ruined his life, he would have become, you know, a very important scientist, because, you know, he got that trophy that, like, said he was full of promise and stuff. So I was, like, jumping over a step and being like, you know, he had all this promise for his life, and then it got ruined by Odie Asmund, who published his name in the paper. That's what I was thinking. I think I skipped a step. Thank you, Cabellion, for pointing out the signature. I was literally... God. Okay, well, let's fucking save just for fun. Oh man. I definitely I jumped the shark on that one. The evidence I need to supplement the article. I know it's right in front of my eyes. Speedrunning, dude, I'm the radical left, man. I can't help speedrunning.
Take that!
There we go. It's this contract, my lord. Mr. Drebber, this is the contract you signed with Mr. Asmund.
Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man.
Quite the contrary.
What?
There's something very significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common.
Really?
And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odie Asmund.
It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed.
It's right there. It's not very hard.
So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is the link between the newspaper article and the contract?
Take that!
What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature.
A signature?
The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person.
What?
As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can see Mr. Asmund's signature at the bottom.
Let me see now. Good lord, yes, they're identical.
In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Asmund. Oh. He's on the ground now.
Objection!
But explain to the court why! Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asmund?
Well, if you think back, You remember that Mr. German talked about that article in his testimony.
Good grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative.
And that is quite beyond the pale.
I think I suffered retribution enough.
At the time, you were a student at the University of London who dreamed of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life.
So Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he?
He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Asman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter.
Is Trevor about to lose his shit? So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually, you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article. Written by Mr. Asman.
Enough!
Stop this endless drivel about my life.
What?
Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber.
Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
What do you mean?
Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research, but they struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen, patented by some wretch or other after all.
Good gracious.
Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench.
I call bullshit on that.
Being forced out of the university because of Lowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that?
Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me?
I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all.
How dare you?
And I have evidence to prove it.
How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead. Show it. What could you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave the university because I lack talent?
Take that!
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say Corviknight. I would say Corviknight fits him more. I think Absol would be more like a, maybe like a Von Karma, like a Francisco Von Karma type thing. I think Corviknight's better for him. Ooh, Absol could be fucking Black Quill. Ooh, Black Quill could also be Corviknight. Fuck. I think more the like sort of like regal, like sort of armored, like knightly thing fits better. Absol's like sort of like this like slick, like shady kind of Pokemon, you know? I don't know. Although then again, Absol has that whole thing about it like people think it brings disaster, and that's what the Reaper does, where the Reaper isn't actually bringing the killings. Yeah. No, that's a very fair point. I guess Absol, I don't know. When I look at Absol, I don't think of him, but I think Absol lore fits better, but I think like aesthetically, Corviknight.
Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science?
You knew he had this. You brought it up earlier.
What exactly is this trophy, Council?
It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord.
There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future.
Good gracious.
Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asman was. When it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life. It's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man.
The truth is...
Finally, he's gonna fold. I doubt it. Oh, she's stepping in.
Fine. Clearly this has run its course now.
What?
I admit it. All of it.
What?
What are you doing? It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago.
No. Good Lord! Dr. Scythe! Do you realize what you're saying, woman?
It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Scythe, you will go along with my plan. From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night 10 years ago. All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. I had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now.
Why on earth would you buckle now?
Well, there's no point trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborate in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished.
So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplices admitted everything.
Surely it goes without saying.
You admit your part in it too, then?
I admit nothing at all.
What?
Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime, there's really no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong.
No! Order!
Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zeeks,
Yes.
I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course.
I've had more than enough now. I hereby present the final
I'm sorry, I'm about to have a fucking coughing fit. I will be, back in, 2 minutes, folks, because I think I'm about to die. Okay. Whew. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Oh, that was painful. Thank you, Post. Thank you, everybody. I had a coughing fit. I did not want to, ruin the audio any more than I've already done. I'm alright. I just, something stuck in the throat. We're good, though. We're gonna present findings to the court.
This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrained.
Very true. It had slipped my mind.
Isn't he one of your closest friends?
As the court has heard, Dr. Scythe has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt.
You mean...
At present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection?
None, my lord.
Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. You've proven Professor Harebrained's innocence.
Without further ado, then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss.
I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Scythe suddenly admit to it like that?
Is everything alright, Mr. Naruhodo?
Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. But is that really what we want? What the defense should be pushing for now is...
Objection!
The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord.
I beg your pardon.
We demand one final testimony. It's fucking music. Let's go.
What? You do realize I'm about to adjudicate in favor of your client, I presume?
What are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that.
But what about a friend, Van Zieks? What about a friend who wants to help you solve your inner demons, buddy?
Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking?
The truth. The whole truth. And a way to bring it all out into the open.
Right.
Yes, in hindsight...
Yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of a doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever you may come to pass.
I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. Must have deduced that this would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client. And here to secure an acquittal.
Obviously.
But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court to pursue the whole truth of the case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Scythe.
Testimony from me? About what?
10 years ago, lady. But the nature of your collaboration with oh, that, okay.
Ha! In case it escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time.
Ah!
As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point protracting this business further with another tedious cross-examination.
Objection!
There goes the bottle!
Pray forgiveness for my careless handling of that hallowed bottle. I slipped.
That's what you call it?
What is your objection, Lord Van Zieks?
The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness.
Don't be stupid!
If there is more to this case than has yet come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end.
I fucking love Van Zieks.
You'll what?
Lord Van Zeeks.
This is most irregular, to say the least.
How bad am I gonna look? How bad am I gonna look post when I say I actually prefer Enoch Drebber to the end? How bad does that make me look? I don't know. I'll be honest. Of the 3 people on the stand, Dr. Scythe is, I think, the one that I'm least into. I think Enoch's got a vibe that I'm totally into. I love that fucking asymmetrical robot shit, and Madame Tuspel's on the other side is a cutie. Dr. Scythe is also hot, but of the 3, she's like the least for me. However, as the prosecution calls for it, I will uphold the request. This courtroom is steamy. We got fucking Kazuma in a mask. We got fucking Barrack Van Zeeks. We got Sholmes up in the stands. We got Susato and Ryunosuke. We got those 3 on the thing, and we got fucking Judge here, fucking Daddy Santa. Everybody in this courtroom is fucking hot as shit right now.
Explaining the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Trevor.
Very well.
The waxwork plot.
It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork and the note tucked into the jacket. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. I enlisted the help of the entire forensic investigation team to dress the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it.
So I was right. The stage and the machine were all specially designed for the deception.
So it seems, and all meticulously prepared. You did well to see through it. You're a very shrewd boy.
Ooh, I like the way you say that to me. She's biting her lip while she says that.
You're a very shrewd boy.
Your daughter wanted to cut me up. Remember that? I'm not into that. Be a better mom. So kind of you to say.
And what about this autopsy report, then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the Crystal Tower instead of under the stage.
That's all? That's a terrible corruption. Wait, hold on. Wait, if that's true, that means he was stabbed too. Wait, hold on. If that's the only difference, then there's still the stabbing.
Only my team were aware of the deceit, and only then under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland Yard knew anything about it, I assure you.
We must be thankful for small mercies, I suppose. Well, I believe that testimony has clarified everything. There's no particular need for cross-examination, I would say.
No, I disagree. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Just look at that expression on Dr. Scythe's face. It's the defense's right to cross-examine any witness following testimony.
What is this about you Japanese that makes you also doggedly persistent?
What other Japanese have you interacted with? Yes, my lord. Okay, I got a waxwork plot. All began at the scene when I saw the waxwork in the note tucked inside the jacket. The actual body of the victim was indicated was beneath the experimental stage. But he had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which is my job. This is the help of the entire forensics investigation team to arrest the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a stated secret. Okay. Oh, he kind of is post. You're kind of right. The white hair and all. Oh, I guess the stabbing could have happened. Okay, yeah, that's okay. So the so he broke his neck, and then the stabbing happened later to implicate him. When you say arranged, I presume you mean with this?
Yes, the instructions in the engineer's note said something along the lines of, fabricate some evidence to make it clear that Hairbrain alone could have killed Asmin.
So, you mean that was your doing?
I fetched Hairbrain's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage, and took it with me, alone, to the abyss under the stage where the birdcage had fallen.
Alone, Doctor?
I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in that particular part of the deception. There was a void beneath the stage where I found the birdcage lying in the dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged into the man's chest. Well, Stormy, yeah, that's true, but also she wrote the fucking autopsy report. So she just wrote no one knows what happened first. Because she fucking stabbed him. You can tell if stabs are post. Post, did you do the stabbing post? You can tell us. This is a safe place. And then you noted that in your fate autopsy report as a fictitious cause of death. Exactly.
So, the actual cause of death was...
Yeah, I'll keep your cover post. Don't worry. Nobody watches these streams. Nobody watches these streams. You're fine. The trauma resulted from the 30-foot drop.
My word.
What is it, Mrs. Otto? I feel like, and I'm not gonna do it, but I feel like I could comfortably just say my social security number on stream and nothing would fucking happen. Because the only people who watch these are people who wouldn't do anything with it. Something about Dr. Sai's last statement is playing on my mind, that's all. Yeah, mine too. Really? I'm too busy thinking about my social security number. Dr. Scythe! There's really no need to shout. I can hear you perfectly well. The defense calls for you to add what you just said to your formal testimony. Oh? Which part? What I want her to supplement her testimony with is... I actually don't know. The real cause of death? The real cause of death being the fall of 30 feet. That part. Fine, if that's what you want. Just stop yelling. Wait, hold on. Is that what we want? Stuff that just happened later.
The prosecution concurs.
Very well, you supplement your... Okay. If you wish, my lord. The actual cause of death was the neck trauma as been suffered from the 30-foot fall. I mean, that's... yeah.
Hold it!
You're quite sure of that? It was a result of the... Yeah. Okay, I think we chose the wrong thing. Yes, as a professional, that was more than apparent. You'd never notice by looking at the photograph of the victim, though, would you? No, that's very true. Obviously not. Which is precisely what coroners are needed to determine the actual facts. Yes, assuming they can be trusted.
Oof. There's no point calling her assessment into question without evidence. Let's get back to the testimony.
Very well. Okay, I'm actually... Yeah, let's switch. You mean what you did with this, correct? To really carrying out the engineer's instructions. Or hasn't been fallen. That's right, yes. Yep, okay, we have to go through this whole thing again. Led down to the beak cage, opened it up. Okay. Took the screwdriver in both hands, plunged it into the man's chest. Okay. That was simply a matter of recording the stab wound as the cause of death on an autopsy report. Did you even do that? Did you even do that, though? Okay. Okay. Alright, she did switch them. Okay. I'm sure there's something here in this testimony. You know, if you think it would be appropriate, I'm sure you could ask Dr. Seitz to change the supplementary testimony she gave before. Should I ask her to do with the statement she added? Or change it? Dr. Scythe, what you said before about doing to the victim's body, I believe that may be significant, so could you change your supplementary statement to explain that instead? Very well. I stood over the victim's corpse where it lay in the toppled cage and plunged the screwdriver into the chest.
Hold it!
So it was you who stabbed Asbin with this? Yes, far easier than dissection, I assure you. No precision required. What a welcome change. The victim died instantly from a stabbed neck. All I did was carry out the instructions I'd been given.
As unflinchingly as ever, no doubt. I imagine you didn't bat an eyelid when you drove the weapon into his body.
There was no need to bat an eye at my eyelids. And what else did you do to twist the facts? Remind the court, why don't you? If you wish. That doesn't not track. But at what cost? Faith in Scotland Yard is going to suffer terrible blows as a result of this.
And your precious secret is out now anyway.
Yes, as you say. And I take full responsibility.
Blow me dead! Dr. Scythe!
Surely there was some other way you could have protected the secret? No, there really wasn't. I've done my utmost to believe me. In many ways, I respect your determination. Phew, I nearly froze under that cold stare she said that. I believe she was being genuine, though, Mr. Naruhodo. So that's her story. She's admitted everything and revealed her full involvement in the crime. I do wonder if there could really be much more to it. Well, I don't know, but I just have a feeling. Do you, Mr. Naruhodo? The truth is, I find it strange, too. How those two are reacting to this in completely opposite ways, I mean. Yes, exactly. For some reason, I feel sure they're still trying to hide something. Okay, let's just start from the front, because I'm a little lost. You just read before, it sounds like this note was anonymous. Do you have any idea of who was behind it? There are very few people in the know about what really happened 10 years ago to start with. But anyway, I'd never heard of this engineer. So no, I had no idea. Yet despite not knowing who was behind the plan, you went along with it? I had no choice. Protecting the professor's secret was my only concern.
But the horse is bolted now, and the stable door will never shut again. Scotland Yard's reputation will be immeasurably damaged as a result of all this.
Yes, thank you, Lord Van Zeeks. I'm well aware of that.
So as I understand it, what you found in the birdcage was the waxwork model. Where then was the victim's body?
Actual body of the victim, as indicated in the notes instructions beneath the experimental stage. Did we already press this? I feel like we did. So you knew about the special construction of the stage and used it to carry out the trick then. It was quite obvious what had happened with the victim in the waxwork. And you switched the two over, didn't you? In other words, you recorded the victim's bodies having been discovered in the Crystal Tower. And the waxwork? I wrapped it and sent it to carriage to the specified address at the specified time. And why were you given such directions?
Presumably so it could be recovered by Drebba and returned to Madame Tuspel's.
I see. And then you put the birdcage back on the experiment. Hold on. If that's the case, why was the head missing? They wanted to see the face, I think. So someone obviously made a mistake about which cage to go where. I thought I'd made it perfectly clear to the team, but still. I suppose you were focused on the victim's body, that being a more important detail. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. Okay, you told us about that.
Hold it!
The entire team in perverting the course of justice? Oh, that's not the only perverted thing I do with them. My team consists of the very best investigators there are. I demand loyalty from all members. We operate on a code of chivalry of sorts.
You aid and abet a murderer, commit perjury, and dare to talk of chivalry?
It was a matter of priorities.
What?
Nothing was more important than protecting the secret of the professor. My team did what was necessary without losing sight of the primary goal. I consider their conduct exemplary. Ugh. Don't concede the point, Mr. Naruhodo. You mustn't let her win.
I need a lawyer.
I'll take that silence as tacit acceptance. Now, can we move on?
I'm confused.
What are we trying to prove here? So that's her story. She's admitted everything. Do wonder if there could be much more to it, but I have a feeling. Truth is, I find it strange too. They're reacting completely opposite ways. Do you guys have any thoughts? Photographic print shows an apparent stab wound to the chest. His corpse where it lay on the toppled. I stood over the victim's corpse where it lay on the toppled, cage and plunged a screwdriver into the chest. No thoughts. I'm admittedly confused about this. You feel dumb? Also me. Also me. What are we missing here? Alright, well let's save this. The other thing we can have her say is the body fell 30 feet and that was the cause of death. And do we have anything that would prove otherwise? I think not. I think because that was the cause of death, right? I guess here it would be the blood. No, that's. The wax was in the balloon, and his neck was snapped. Yeah. But what does that have to do with this? His neck snapped because he fell 30 feet into the... down to the ground, and then Drebber popped the balloon with the flaming arrow. The wax fell head first. Ooh, you're right. Shit, you're right.
Hold it!
He didn't fall head first, that's true. He broke some vertebra, but he didn't fall head first. Said before about the real cause of death. I believe that may be significant, so could you please change your supplementary statement to explain that instead? Very well. Alright, the actual cause was neck trauma. Okay.
Hold it!
quite sure of that. Result of a broken neck. Professional. You never know just by looking at the photograph. It's very true. Obviously not. Precisely what corners are needed. Yes. Assuming they can be trusted. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Would we present this?
Objection.
No. Okay. Fuck, we saved before. Shit. I don't know. Present this. Oh, that was right. Okay, I was right. I was thinking that, but I didn't have a good enough, like, I couldn't think of a reason. I just had a feeling. Got a nasty feeling. That this inconsistency points to extremely uncomfortable truth.
What is the matter, Council? Have you lost your tongue?
I don't know what it is. It's like the blood. Is it the blood on the thing? What did we just present? We just presented the picture, right? It's because the body was already dead. It's because the body was already dead, there wouldn't have been blood. Right? Am I stupid? I don't know how death works. But I feel like the stabbing had to happen first. Dr. Scythe, in that last statement of yours, there's just one point that seems to defy explanation. Rigor mortis.
Out with it, my learned friend.
There's an obvious inconsistency between your description and this photograph, which shows the victim in the birdcage following the events that led to his death.
Objection! The court's already examined that photograph in depth. There's nothing new we can learn from it.
Yes, we have already considered it, that's true. But we now know the facts to be different.
What do you mean?
I believe we should let the defense explain. When in this photograph would we see the alleged inconsistency with the witness's statement?
Is it here or is it here? I want to say it's the blood, but maybe I'm literally an idiot. I'm gonna save so I don't look stupid, and we can edit it out in post. Not actually. Post, will you edit it out for me, post, please?
Take that!
Look closely at the bloodstain on the victim's chest. It clearly extends in a downward direction towards the man's feet.
And why is that significant, Counsel?
If the victim was stabbed moments before the kinesis machine was set in motion, that's entirely expected.
Ah, of course. No, that's not what happened.
Exactly, my lord. Dr. Scythe made it clear in her testimony just now that at the point at which she stole Professor Harebrain's screwdriver and stabbed the victim was after the grand deception was set in motion, when the birdcage had fallen below the stage out of sight. From the shape of it, it's clear that the birdcage would have fallen on its side after the 30-foot drop. And if the victim had really been stabbed whilst inside the birdcage in that position, the blood from the wound would have spread out equally in all directions. For it to have formed the longitudinal appearance we see in the picture is inconceivable. Ah! Given that the victim's blood seeped vertically downwards from the wound, it must be the case that when you stabbed Mr. Asman, he was standing up. In short, Dr. Scythe, your latest testimony was a total fabrication. Ah! Ah! I knew it. I was right. Now I've identified that contradiction, there's only one way to explain the facts. We've all been under a great misapprehension here.
What? What sort of misapprehension?
Enoch was working for her, not the other way around? Enoch was the patsy, not Dr. Scythe. You claim you were coerced into helping Mr. Drebber as a result of the note he left in the waxwork. You claim that you made changes to the scene of the crime to implicate the defendant. And you claim that you authored a fake autopsy report to cover your tracks. But one of those claims is an out-and-out lie. Because the question of what the bloodstain really tells us has only one possible answer.
If that is the case, then what is it, man?
Counsel, you've clearly struck upon a revelation. Now tell the court what it is. Which part of Dr. Sai's story is shown to be a lie in contradiction to the testimony?
And the stabbing of the victim, right? Like, that's obvious? The answer is very simple if you consider the sequence of events. If, when the victim was stabbed, the blood from the wound seeped downwards as it did, we can be sure that the victim must have been either sitting or standing upright at the time.
As you rightly pointed out, the birdcage would have fallen on its side when it fell beneath the stage.
Yes, it would, which tells us that the victim must have been in that position of his own accord.
Objection! That's impossible! The man was dead, remember?
No, that is the misapprehension. When the birdcage fell from the stage into the void below, it must have hit the ground with considerable force. But Mr. Asman didn't die in the fall. He probably lost consciousness for a while, but when he came around, he got to his feet and to climb out of the cage. Just as Dr. Scythe appeared. If the victim was in fact alive at that point in time, it changes everything. Mr. Odie Asman's killer wasn't the defendant, Professor Albert Hairbrain. Wait, what do you mean, what about the blood splatter? What about it? It went down, because he was standing up. Nor was it the mastermind behind the stage trickery, Mr. Enoch Drebber. It was you, Dr. Courtney Scythe.
Order, order, order! Can this possibly be true?
Have you been taking me for a fool? It was you, was it? You killed him.
You hoped that by admitting to being an accomplice in Mr. Drebber's scheme, the trial would end, before you were accused of a far worse crime. Cold-blooded murder.
Oh, do shut up! You're so desperate now making all this up, as if I would do something like that.
Objection.
I assure you the defense is not desperate, Doctor. Mr. Naruhodo has established the facts using evidence and logic alone. Ha! Logic? Don't make me laugh. Sadly, your logic has a gaping hole in it.
What? What do you mean?
I'd have thought it was obvious. A motive, boy. You're lacking a motive. What possible reason would I have to kill Mr. Asman?
Asman was involved in any number of criminal activities, from coercion to theft to murder, but there is no known connection to Dr. Scythe there.
I'm rather relieved to say it does seem somewhat far-fetched.
True, there's no obvious motive, but there's still something in the back of my mind. I feel sure I've seen something somewhere into why the coroner might have done this.
Yes, I might have to tampered with the crime scene and concocted a fake report, but murdering someone for no reason is a very different story.
No, when you question what possible reason you could have for wanting to kill Mr. Asman, something did come to mind.
What?
What was it, Counsel? Enlighten the court at once. So yesterday, did we?
Something that seemed strange, but we had no reason to suspect it at the time. There's a particular object that explains why Dr. Scythe would have wanted to kill Mr. Asman. Did he have something to do with the Iron Mask? The scalp. Wait, hold on. What did we see with the scalpels yesterday? She had new scalpels, right? Does that matter? God, what could the scalpels have to do with this, if anything? Because he mentioned seeing it yesterday. fuck? Why Dr. Said would have wanted to kill Mr. Asman? Did they have a deal? Was Asman in her books? I think that's what it is. It's a scalpel. Or rather, scalpels. 500 of them to be exact. Did you say scalpels? Ah! It would appear that word has struck a chord, Doctor. You! Come on, out with it! It was yesterday, when we visited your laboratory. Look at this big, thick book here.
It appears to be an accounting ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team spending, I think.
Oh? What is it?
It's clear that the team purchases various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but, well, one entry seems rather strange.
Really? In what way?
They're buying 500 scalpels every month.
$500 scalpels? A month?
At first I wondered why on earth you could be using that many scalpels for. But actually, I realize now it's not the scalpels themselves that are significant. It's the money for them, disappearing every month from the department's accounts.
Asman's criminal organization relied heavily on extortion for its funding, tracing the money for the forensics investigation team account to find out where it was going.
So Asman was extorting her because of the professor.
Would be extremely straightforward.
10 years ago, when Mr. Asman was still a journalist and wrote this article about Mr. Drebber, he may well have stumbled upon information he was researching the story. Information relating to Dr. Sai's darkest secret that he would use to rack money from her for the next decade.
Her darkest secret? Good lord, you mean?
I don't know what happened on that night, that execution 10 years ago. But clearly the opportunity to rid yourself of that menace was too tempting to pass up. So in the end, you weren't coerced at all, were you? You did it entirely of your own free will. You stabbed Mr. Asman in the heart with all your might. To silence the blackmailer who knew your dark secret forever. You'll never understand, none of you, what we've had to keep covered up all these long years. This very little of the machine remains after it was ripped apart by the bomb. The truth of this case can never be properly established unless you speak out.
And if you decide not to, it's very possible that Courtney Scythe will escape punishment for her crimes. Please, sir, own up to what you've done, and tell the court the truth about what happened.
10 years ago, you told the truth, and you were robbed of a bright and successful future as a result.
Yeah, Enoch did still commit terrorism, it's very true.
I can certainly understand your bitterness and your consternation now. However, this is surely the chance you've been waiting for, to sever the hold that fate's had over you. Oh, you rob of words are hard sometimes.
Super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, I mean, really. It's the addle-brained mock scientists that are the worst, you know. They don't recognize the fact that they don't have talent. They can't even get that right. And so they end up chasing impossible dreams, having unbridled faith in their abilities. They go on and on about their wonderful hypotheses, their stupid eyes shining like a little child's. They make me sick. I can't abide their foolishness.
Careful, Mr. Drebber.
I was particularly pleased with the kinesis machine. It made for quite a show, didn't it?
So you admit it? You admit that it was nothing more than a sham, made for the purpose of killing the victim?
Yes, I admit it. I did it all, in the name of revenge.
Revenge for the future that Mr. Asman's article had deprived you of 10 years earlier. But the revenge you sought didn't stop at Asmund, did it?
Which is where that very particular waxwork comes in. Yes, I see.
The condemned convict that you saw rising from the grave in Lowgate Cemetery 10 years ago. If your account of those events was all true...
Then obviously Scotland Yard couldn't afford to acknowledge what had happened. Even if it meant discrediting a bright young man and crushing any future career he might have had.
So your plan required that you abduct that particular waxwork model in order to exact your revenge on Scotland Yard as well. Or on Dr. Scythe, to be precise. To be precise.
It was a year ago. About a year ago, by some extraordinary twist of fate, Asmund turned up at my workshop. He didn't remember who I was, of course. He just wanted to employ my services as an engineer. And he happened to have a paper with him. An article on the front page caught my eye. About the coroner who'd handled that bogus autopsy being appointed head of the new forensic team. When I learnt that news, my cognitive processes started to devise the plan. What a horrid tale. He robbed me of my future, so I wanted to use the man's own wiles against him, for revenge, and have that rotten Scotland Yard eating out of my hand at the same time.
Who's the culprit? Culprit of what? Drebber planned it all, but it didn't actually kill... Drebber planned the murder. He wanted to murder, but his murder failed. He planned for the fall to kill Asmund. It did not kill Asmund. Then, when she went to go fabricate more evidence, she found him alive, and she murdered him because she wanted to murder him. Herself, for her own reasons.
I wanted them all to suffer the same humiliation I'd had to suffer.
Your actions against those who ruined your future were justified as revenge. At least to yourself. Certainly, no one has the right to destroy another's prospects, especially for purely selfish gain. And yet, in carrying out your plan, you did exactly that to someone else, didn't you?
Did I?
Professor Harebrain's only crime was passion for his hypothesis. But you had no compunction about sacrificing his future to effect your revenge. You knew that he would be forever branded a failure and a fraud. Perhaps life treated you unfairly 10 years ago, and others' misconduct left your life in tatters. But remember this, your own actions resulted in exactly the same thing for another perfectly innocent young man.
Lord Van Zeeks, what of Dr. Scythe?
An immediate warrant for her arrest has been granted, and she's been remanded in custody, my lord. I presume she will face trial in the coming days, along with Mr. Drebber.
A most regrettable situation indeed. She's made great contributions to her profession over the years. It really is a hard truth to swallow. However, that is a topic for some future occasion. For now, Professor Harebrain...
I mean, I need to know what the fuck was up with it. Why didn't they kill him? Why didn't they kill him? Why did they put him in a box without killing him? This is important.
Yes.
It seems there was a great deal more to your experiment than you realized. However, I think we can assume now that all sorry details have been brought to light. This has been a very long and profound trial, but I'm pleased to say you are absolved of all guilt.
This whole experience has taught me a very great but painful lesson. I've been, this dedicated scientist, this devotee of natural philosophy, I've been selfish and self-centered and, above all, a fool.
Professor.
I've spent my life thinking of nothing but my research. misguidedly believing that I could do whatever I set my mind to despite my lack of talent. And the worst of it is, in the process I've caused others pain and misery. Others who are far greater people than I.
No, Professor. That's not true.
What?
Don't tar yourself with the same brush as Drebba. What happened was his doing, and his alone. This outcome is his fate, not yours. You're not to blame in any way.
Lord Van Zieks.
And the derision with which he referred to you earlier, calling you a fool, talentless even. The man has no idea. To believe in yourself and work your fingers to the bone to realize your dreams. That's laudable, not laughable. No one has the right to deride another for such choices.
Look at Van Zieks being a good friend. What a compadre.
Oh. Thank you, Barrack.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Yes, my lord.
is this court's expectation you find the defendant not guilty of the charge of which he stands accused? I presume there are no objections?
None for me, my lord.
Certainly not.
This trial has really made me think, but this is the right decision.
It's all been proven methodically and rigorously. I have no misgivings whatsoever.
What's that? He's done, is it? It's all over.
I don't know what's becoming the yard these days. I don't recognize the place.
Very well. In that case, I hereby pronounce the defendant not guilty.
That's not. We shouldn't be doing that in the courtroom.
Court is adjourned.
It's over. That was some trial. Professor, what a splendid outcome, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. Congratulations, Professor Hairbrain. Mr. Naruhodo, Miss Susato, I am truly beside myself with gratitude. How could I ever thank you enough?
I'm just glad it's all been cleared up, that you realize you were just caught up in a bad situation.
Right now you know if I had that research grant money. I'd give the whole lot to you, every penny.
Well, that's very kind, but I'm just a student, so...
We don't need any financial reward. Your acquittal is more than enough.
Well, some money would be nice, actually.
Oh dear, what can I do? Aha! How about this, as a memento? In the paper of my hypothesis is inside.
Well, just as a memento then, thank you.
I've been wondering, Professor. What are you going to do now? Oh my, yes. What am I going to do? My hypothesis and my great machine lie in ruins. But still, it's been too long since I was last in London, so perhaps I'll enjoy some sightseeing. Must explore the great exhibition while I'm still here, too, and see if new inspiration hits me. Oh yes, that's a wonderful idea.
I can't allow that. Lord Van Zieks, what are you doing in here?
Barrack! I'm sorry you had to go through that, Albert.
Well, if I'm honest, it was terrifying. You were like a great demon behind your bench there, snarling down on your prey.
You're one of the few true friends I have. I couldn't leave it to anybody else to handle the prosecution or the defense.
Sorry? Or the defense? Did I just hear that right?
I always knew that you had my best interest at heart, don't worry. How about you show me around while I'm here in town? It's been a long time since we left university. We have a lot to catch up on.
Listen, Albert. In a few days, your acquittal will be made official. When that happens, you must head straight to Dover. I'll accompany you.
What?
From there, you'll cross the channel and make your way back to Germany. I've already purchased the tickets.
But no, hold on a minute, Barrack. What about the Great Exhibition? This is the chance of a lifetime for me.
And it'll be a death time for you pretty soon. No sightseeing, Albert. Give up on the idea.
Sometimes it's hard to see any warmth in those eyes, Barrack.
Lord Van Zieks? What's all this about?
A necessary precaution.
Yes, I think I understand. You do? The Reaper, come on! Lyris told me that when you met Lord Van Zieks at his office some days ago, he asked how Mr. Natsume was doing. Yes, that's right. I remember being surprised at the time, and thinking it was nice of him to ask. The point is, Mr. Natsume is still alive and well, even though it's been more than 6 months now since he stood trial with the Reaper as the prosecutor. You mean the Reaper's influence doesn't stretch overseas?
Those in the Reaper's sights meet their ends days or sometimes months after their acquittal. That's been the pattern up until now.
But of course, we know that both Mr. Natsume and Gina were completely innocent.
True. And perhaps that governs the Reaper's actions. The truly innocent are spared. But I don't want to take any chances with a close personal friend.
But Barrack!
Like the mustached Nipponese, this man should leave the country without delay. That's why I'm packing him off to Germany at once.
Right. Does your friend-shaped package get any say in it? Goodness, was this your intention all along then, Lord Van Zieks? In court, where people think of him as the Reaper, this man seems absolutely merciless. And yet, sometimes I feel as though I don't understand him at all. Yeah, Gina's doing okay, but Gina's going to France soon.
It's time to go, Albert. Back to the prison for the time being.
Yes, all right. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo. Thank you so much for everything.
Not at all, Professor. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Best wishes, Professor Hairbrain. Well, once the dust has settled, you must come and visit me in Germany. Anyway, goodbye for now.
Now, my Nipponese friend.
Oh, yes? I thought you'd gone too.
We have matters to discuss. Can you spare me some time?
You want to talk with me?
I'll be waiting in the courtroom in 10 minutes.
Oh? Well, that was strange.
A secret rendezvous between me and Van Zieks in the courtroom at midnight? Oh ho ho! Yes, very good, very good!
No, don't end the chapter there! I gotta know! The Enigma, Barrack Van Zieks. What does he want to discuss, I wonder? The answer awaits in the courtroom, I suppose. Here goes then. Yes, don't end it. Don't end the chapter. Don't end the chapter. I need to know. Oh, thank God. Thank God. I could not wait until next time. Holy shit. If they fucking cliffhangered that, I would have been pissed. Oh shit, is it about Kazuma?
So are you satisfied? You saved a guileless scientist from a great injustice.
Yes, I think so. I'm relieved at least that the man's innocence could be proven.
Anyway, I imagine you've been wondering where my animosity towards you Nipponese comes from.
Yes, actually. Very much so. Well, at first I thought you just didn't like me. I imagined you saw me as a pretentious child from an unimportant land who had no business being here. But now I think differently. You clearly know our ways, so I would guess that some specific incident led to your thorough dislike of my race. Will you tell me what happened, please?
The Professor. I thought I'd never hear that name in this courtroom again, to be honest.
He took your brother's life.
Clint. My brother was Clint Van Zieks. 16 years ago, when I was still just in my teens. He was already the director of prosecutions and a key member of the judiciary. I looked up to him. He was everything I aspired to be. He was involved in the establishment of justice systems in foreign countries as well. There were exchange programs between Britain and other nations then too, to share knowledge and ideas. As part of one of those programs, 3 judicial students came to Britain from your homeland, the Empire of Japan.
Oh, if it was 16 years ago, then one of them could have been my father.
Of course. I remember Dr. Mikitaba well.
I had no idea.
I was a minor at the time, training at the prosecutor's office. One day, Clint introduced me to the 3 visiting Nipponese.
So, you've actually met my father?
He and his colleagues were polite and amicable. They were adept at their work and exacting in their standards. It was my first encounter with the Nipponese spirit, and it made a very great impression upon me. But 6 years later, that's when it happened. The investigation was going nowhere. There were no suspects even, just an ever-growing list of victims. And in the end, my brother became one of them. The last, in fact, before the case was finally resolved.
I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zeeks. Truly.
Clint was always ready to put his life on the line for justice anyway, so he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. He lost his life to the killer, but it was this victory in the end. For me personally, though, it was a great loss. I found myself in a very dark place indeed. When I finally found out the killer's identity, the reason why no one had been able to catch the man sooner ceased to be such a mystery. He'd been hiding in plain sight all the time.
In plain sight?
Are you aware of political events 10 years ago? It was a period of extremely sensitive diplomacy between the British and Japanese empires.
Holy fuck! Wait. Was it Josiah Brett? Was it fucking Assassin? A new treaty was being forged, I think.
Correct. The Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation was being concluded.
And that's why they didn't kill him. That's why they didn't kill the professor. They pretended to kill him, and they put him in a grave, and then he was going to get out of the grave, and he just so happened to get shot because Enoch was there. Holy shit. What?
Which is why this particular killer's appearance in court was conducted as a closed trial. If the British public had known the identity of the killer, not only would the treaty have been in jeopardy, our 2 nations could very well have ended up at war.
What? A war between Britain and Japan? That's never happened before.
But that would mean... Oh my, you mean to say the professor was...
When the trial reached its conclusion earlier, I thought to myself, yes, it's time. Time for you to come face to face with this hideous monster.
Okay, is it just me, or is my Van Zeek's voice actually kind of close to the actual one? Like, it's not that close, but, like, it's closer than I expected.
I borrowed the key for the mask from the proprietress of the Waxwork Museum. So see for yourselves now. Confirm it with your own eyes. The truth that's been hidden this past decade.
Oh, this is fucking hype. Yo, this is super hype.
That's the professor?
Yes, that's him.
Until now, the thought never even crossed my mind. That the mass murderer, whose crimes shook Britain as never before, was Japanese.
Wait a minute. That face. I feel as though I've seen it somewhere. It's strangely familiar.
Cosmo? Is that Cosmo's dad? Oh shit!
Father?
Holy shit. Oh, the mask is coming off?
Kazuma! My best friend, Kazuma Asogi. After a whole year, finally his memories returned. As he stood there before me, Ryunosuke. Hello again. My friend.
Kazuma-sama!
Judicial Assistant Mikotoba.
It's been a very long road. Thank you. Thank you for guiding my friend here when I could not.
It was an honor.
I knew you wouldn't die that easily. Kazuma.
I owe you thanks too, for taking good care of that in my absence.
Oh. Karuma, the great blade of the Asogi clan, passed down through the generations. When we left Japan, this sword was at my friend's side. The Japanese man's katana is his soul, and he couldn't be parted from it. But then, when the incident happened, it was Susato-san's wish that I inherit the sword, and I've kept it with me ever since, along with my memories of the friendship we shared. With this by my side, I always felt that you were watching over me somehow.
Strongheart's not going to be happy about this.
I've made it. At last.
Father. Are you saying... Surely not. You mean, you knew all this time? I'm looking at it, but I still can't believe it. This mass murderer is Kazuma's father.
That belongs to Madame Tuspel's. Please don't break it. Madame is not going to be happy about that.
Kazuma-sama.
That was private property, Kazuma-sama.
Ryunosuke, we have much to talk about, but now is not the time. I'll be seeing you.
That's all Kazuma said. Before he turned and left us there, in the courtroom.
How's the weather been? How was death?
So he's the laughing after image of the man who took my brother's life, is he?
Yes, Kazuma Asogi, my best friend.
3 months ago, when Lord Strongheart introduced us, I had an inkling there was something there. Some connection.
But why did Lord Strongheart do that? Why did he make Cosmo Lord Van Zeek's apprentice? And when he was suffering amnesia, too.
The man was apprehended, even executed. But his legacy just won't die. That's the sad truth. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I thank you for meeting with me as I asked.
Years ago, my grandmother took me to the railway station. We were there to meet my father from the train. For me, it was the first time I'd ever seen him. Poor Susato-san. All this is tied up with the painful memories for her, too. She's never talked about this with me before, though. It took time to adjust to having father around, but just when I was trying to get used to it, he called me into his study one day. He told me that a great friend of his had passed away in London, and that the friend had left behind a son, a boy 7 years my senior. Father told me the boy had made a promise to his late father, so he was starting to become a defense lawyer. I wanted to help, so I studied to become a qualified judicial assistant. As I'm sure you've worked out, that young man's name was Kazuma Asoki. So you see, that's how he and I met.
For a brief moment, my great friend had returned, only to disappear again all too soon. But in that fleeting encounter, something stirred. Something that had been dormant for a long time. As if great wheels had been set in motion. I could almost hear them creaking into life. In some ways, it was the end of a chapter. But in many, it was the start of a new one.
I mean, that was a fantastic chapter. Sing it? What am I singing? What do I, wait, did they say Among Us? I missed that. I must have missed the Among Us. Oh, you didn't say, you said sing it Stormy. I don't know what we're singing, but Twisted Karma in his last bow. Okay, well that is wow, okay, yeah. Nobody cared about him until he put on the mask. Alright, well that was yeah, let's return to the title screen. That was a fantastic episode. That one was a hell of a lot of fun. Probably one of my favorites in the game. The sequel, like the two games together. Maybe, yeah, probably actually my favorite. That was fantastic. I cannot wait to see what the next two have in store for us. But alas, we will be taking a brief respite from the Gray State Attorney Chronicles, obviously, to go play Pokemon Legends Arceus. I'm kind of thinking that probably won't take too long. Kind of guessing that'll be like a week or two, maybe 3. I don't even know if I'll stream the whole thing. I figure I at least start it, and then we'll move from there. And then we'll be back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and then I have another game that I'm very excited to play. But I won't announce it yet, just because I'm not sure if it will be the next thing I play. But there is something I'm excited to play after this. I imagine it only takes one play session. Big fucking mood. I hear it's like 30. I don't know if I'm gonna 100% it. I don't like. I really just want to like play the first few hours and see how much I even like it. Cause I don't know. Pokemon a lot of the time is like, ugh. So we'll play through next Friday, and then maybe we'll also do a Saturday session. Maybe we'll also do the following week. But yeah, just in case I don't talk to you post, you have a good weekend. In case I do talk to you, however unlikely that might be, I guess we'll discuss then. But either way, everyone, have a wonderful evening, and I will see you next week with Pokemon Legends Arceus, and we'll move from there. Bye-bye, and thank you all for joining. What a great episode. What a great game. Honestly, I love the Ace Attorney games. They're so nice. I would like to go back and play the other ones, but like, I already have, you know. I really love Dual Destinies, and unfortunately that one's kind of hard to get because it's a 3DS one. But alas, We'll talk about that in the future, maybe. I don't know. Good night, everybody. Have a good weekend.